And it's revealed Taylor Swift's mum negotiated her VIP security directly with Starmer's former Chief of Staff, Sue Gray. And according to reports, even the Attorney General was brought in to persuade the police to breach their usual protocols. Why so much effort for one billionaire pop star? This is very curious, just how many of the government were involved in this decision over Taylor Swift's security. OK, so the Met Police initially say, no, we don't need to have this extra security, this royal escort, this VVIP security for this woman. There's no credible threat in London, despite the fact that there was in Austria. But then you have Sadiq Khan, Keir Starmer, Sue Gray, the Attorney General, all brought in to persuade the Met Police that actually Taylor Swift, the billionaire pop star, suddenly needs this royal escort.
It's interesting on two levels. Number one, a blue lights escort is for royals and visiting heads of state. I mean, there isn't an example in history I can think of where a pop star has been given this blue lights travel option, funded, of course, by the UK taxpayer. But, of course, there's the deeper question about the operational independence of the police. The Metropolitan Police and all police services in the country were founded on the point that we don't live in a police state. We don't have politicians telling the police who to arrest, who to protect, how to do their job. That way lies tyranny.
Also, as ever, is there much forward thinking? OK, so you give this to Taylor Swift because her mum phoned you up and pleaded for it, and you got a few free tickets. OK, fantastic. What about the next pop star that wants it? What if, you know, Harry Styles is in town and he wants a royal escort? Or Beyoncé, does she fancy one? Ariana Grande, of course, see what happened at one of her concerts. I mean, should all pop stars be given this type of treatment, or is Taylor Swift just special? I'm just thinking about the economics here. I mean, how much money does it cost to do a blue lights escort with many, many police cars across the whole of London? I mean, I'll do the sums in the break. Probably more than a few tickets to a concert. Yeah. I mean, this is a really bad deal, just on numeric terms, that the politicians have done. They get some free tickets, but how much taxpayers' money have they spent getting those free tickets? I mean, they'd, of course, say this had nothing to do with the free tickets. That's just, you know, a bonus of being in the job that they do. But it doesn't make sense at all. No forward thinking to this. What do you make of it? gbnews.com/your say. Should the government really be doing deals with a pop star's mum? I don't think so. Anyway, it's the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Emily, thank you and good afternoon. The top stories. The Prime Minister and the Health Secretary have said new weight loss jabs could help boost the economy in Britain by getting people back into work. Wes Streeting suggested the latest generation of medicines, including Ozempic, could be life-changing for individuals, and he said it would ease the pressure on the NHS. Experts, though, have warned in the past that the drug is not a quick fix or a replacement for eating well and exercising, and should only be offered under medical supervision. Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury James Murray, though, told GB News it is good for the economy.
We want to make sure that people who are not working at the moment for any reasons, but obviously obesity is one of them, we want to support them to get back into work. And these weight loss jabs are just one option for helping people to lose weight. There'll obviously be a discussion between a patient and their doctor to work out the best way for them to lose weight. These weight loss jabs play a role as part of the overall set of interventions that you can make to help people lose weight and to where they can work, get back into work, which is good for them and good for the economy.
In other news, children who are doom scrolling for hours a day on smartphones are at risk of widespread harm. According to Labour MP Josh McAllister, the equivalent of seatbelt legislation is needed to help them manage addictive content for children. Tomorrow, McAllister will introduce a private member's bill in Parliament on protecting children from harms caused by excessive screen time. The bill will call for legal requirements to be introduced so all schools in England are mobile-free zones, and is also expected to call for the age at which companies can get data consent from children without parental permission to be raised from 13 to 16. Now, it was pure chance. Dawn Sturgis sprayed herself with Novichok before meeting up with her daughter, an inquiry's been told. Dawn's mother, Caroline Sturgis, has said that Dawn had plans to meet her daughter before she discovered the perfume bottle containing the substance, and said it was a solace to her family that Dawn's daughter was not also killed in the incident. 44-year-old Dawn died after applying the nerve agent to her skin in July 2018. It came after the attempted murders of former spy Sergei Skripal, his daughter Yulia, and then police officer Nick Bailey, who were poisoned in Salisbury in March that year. Elsewhere, UK earnings growth has fallen to its lowest level for more than 2 years amid further signs of a weakening jobs market, according to official figures. The Office for National Statistics says average regular earnings growth eased back to 4.9% in the 3 months to July, down from 5.1% in the previous 3 months. This marked the lowest level since the 3 months to June 2022. But earnings growth continues to outstrip inflation as pay increased by 2.6% in the 3 months to August, with consumer prices index inflation taken into account. The UN Secretary-General has condemned the large number of civilian casualties that have taken place in northern Gaza. It comes as the UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency claimed 10 people were killed after an Israeli attack on a food supply centre. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees said shells hit inside and outside the centre yesterday morning as people tried to get food handouts. The IDF has said it would review the incident. The UN peacekeeping chief has said that the UN peacekeepers will stay in all their positions in Lebanon, despite the calls made by the Israeli authorities to vacate the positions that are in the vicinity of the blue line between Lebanon and Israel. Israel expanded its targets in its war with Hezbollah militants in Lebanon yesterday, killing at least 21 people in an airstrike in the north. Now, Sean Diddy Combs has been hit by a new batch of lawsuits accusing him of sexual assault against 6 people, including a 16-year-old boy. A new wave of lawsuits filed yesterday accuses Combs, also known as P. Diddy, of raping women, sexually assaulting men and molesting the boy. At least 6 lawsuits were filed against the hip-hop mogul in a federal court in New York City. All were filed anonymously. More than 100 alleged victims are now believed to be in the process of taking legal action against Combs in the wake of his sex trafficking arrest last month. Sport now and Manchester United have reportedly ended a multi-million-pound agreement with their legendary manager Sir Alex Ferguson as part of a cost-cutting drive. Ferguson stepped down as manager in 2013. The Scot won 38 trophies at United during a managerial reign spanning nearly 27 years, including 13 Premier League titles and 2 European Cups. He reportedly received £2.16 million a year to serve as a global ambassador for the club in a decade-long agreement. Now, according to The Athletic, that's now been ended by the club's minority owners, Ineos, following a face-to-face meeting with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And the birth of a rare calf, said to be the smallest species of wild cattle, was captured on video at Chester Zoo. A female Anua named Kasimba was delivered by her mother Darcy following a 10-month pregnancy, and the birth was recorded on hidden cameras located in their den. The video is believed to be the first recorded footage of an Anua birth, according to the Conservation Zoo. Moments after Darcy gave birth, the video shows her little calf stumbling as she took her very first steps and explored the world outside her den for the first time. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 9 minutes past midday. And here's one for you. Free fat jabs for the unemployed. Yes, obese, jobless Brits could be given free weight loss medicines to help them back into work.
So hang on, if you've got a job, you have to pay for them? Oh, OK. Well, weight-related illness costs the economy a whopping £74 billion a year, apparently. But Health Secretary Wes Streeting claims jabs like Ozempic and Mounjaro will stop Britain's widening waistbands from burdening the economy and also reduce pressure on the NHS.
Well, the move comes as the government announced their collaboration with the pharmaceutical giant Eli Lilly to help improve care for people living with obesity. Living with is that how we're supposed to talk about people with?
That's the woke way of saying it now.
People living with obesity.
Yes.
I mean, fat people.
Living with obesity. Yes. Yeah, that's what we say these days. Apparently, that's what the NHS says. Former medical director and chief medical officer of Bupa, Dr. Andrew Vallance-Owen, joins us now to discuss this. Thank you very much indeed, Andrew. These jabs, OK, it's being framed as the way to get people back back to work. Do you think it is such a tool?
Well, these jabs, as you call them, are, highly, supported by the science in helping, particularly people with type 2 diabetes, but also people with weight loss. NICE has certainly approved these drugs you've been talking about for helping with weight loss. But it's not a panacea. It really isn't. I mean, the study which found out through a randomized controlled trial against a placebo that it would help took 5 years. And the study which Wes Streeting is talking about is going to take 5 years to then determine whether not only does it reduce obesity, but does it actually help people back to work. So this is going to be quite a long run exercise, if you like, to check these things. But I do congratulate them on bringing prevention to the fore. We've got a real problem with preventing illness. The NHS only spends 5% of its money on trying to prevent illness. It spends most of it on treating people who should have had their illness prevented earlier on. So the work he's doing on children's adverts being stopped after for fatty foods and things like that being stopped after 9 p.m. And this exercise is at least an initiative to try and, for the first time for a long time, really try and prevent illness rather than be paying so much to treat it.
Hang on, do these two things sit in two different categories? I mean, drugs like Ozempic, the semaglutide-based fat jabs, as you mentioned, have been through randomised controlled trials. We know they work, we know they suppress appetite and people lose weight on them. That's scientifically proven. There is no scientific evidence to suggest that banning certain television adverts or changing the aisles of supermarkets will have any effect on what people eat at all.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to get into that, but there is evidence that the marketing by these huge food companies does have a social influence, especially on young people. And I've seen lots of studies which do show that people who are subjected to this without knowing make choices which are quite what the market wants rather than what they should be eating. So
yes, otherwise they wouldn't spend so much money on advertising,
well, a lot of it
would
is
they?
brand switching,
I want to know whether the NHS is going to get a good deal on this. I don't know much about this Eli Lilly pharmaceutical company, but one of the criticisms of the NHS and its procurement processes is that we end up spending an awful lot on something we could get cheaper elsewhere. How do we know we're going to get a good deal with this?
Well, I tend to agree with what you're saying generally, if I might say so. But they have, compared to in the United States, the price that we seem to be getting here at £159 a month for this medication, that's at its lowest dose, seems, and I haven't obviously looked at the economics of it, this has only just come out, it seems quite a reasonable price compared to hugely more that you would have to pay in the United States. But again, we have to look at cost effectiveness, and that is what the study, the new study, is going to have to show, that it's effective in keeping people or getting people back to work. The NICE study did show that there was an element of cost effectiveness, but only for people who had a BMI over 35. Who had some other comorbidities as well. So NICE were being quite careful about how much the NHS should spend, and it is very limited. But this is a separate initiative, and we don't know what the deal will be.
Really, really interesting there, £159 a month. We don't often talk about the cost to the NHS of whatever we do. But I mean, that's not that far off what a GP visit would cost, for instance. There are many different elements that we never think of in terms of price because of the system. But actually, if we're sort of swapping one for another, it might make sense. Yeah,
Dr. Andrew Vallance-Owen, thank you very much indeed for your time. We'll have to leave it there. Former Medical Director and Chief Medical Officer of Bupa. Yeah, I don't understand. So if you're unemployed, you get it for free. If you happen to have a job, then you have to pay for it yourself.
Unless you're really overweight, in which case you get it for free on the NHS. OK. But I wonder, if you're very overweight, you probably have other concerns as well. You may be suffering from depression or other mental health issues as well. Could this solve that? Yeah,
too?
I mean, all sorts of comorbidities that are a direct sort of consequence of being overweight. I mean, obviously, if you get to a healthier weight, then your risk of all those other things...
But apparently these jabs can make you vomit a lot. They can make you a bit depressed as well because the dopamine switches off or whatever it is. Anyway, let's move on because there's another story in town. The Metropolitan Police officers are facing criticism, two of them, for not acknowledging Hezbollah as a terrorist organisation during a pro-Palestinian protest. Now, there's a viral video that's been going around showing officers telling a spectator that Hezbollah's status is just a matter of opinion. So it's a matter of opinion whether Hezbollah is a terrorist organisation. Let's watch.
It's a vigil.
For
the death of the leader of Lebanon.
Right. Leader of Lebanon or leader of Hezbollah?
Hezbollah, that's it.
That's
right. I'm not
Hezbollah.
Sorry, I don't take a lot of political interest because I'm not allowed to. But yeah, Hezbollah.
So they were mourning leader of terrorist organizations.
Your opinion is up to you.
Well, Hezbollah is legally a terrorist organization.
Again, so your opinion is your opinion.
No, it's not my opinion. It's opinion of the government.
Okay, well, we're not allowed to take opinions. Yeah.
OK, so they were at a vigil for the former leader, late leader, of Hezbollah, the terrorist organisation, and the police officers clearly had no idea why they were there, what was going on, who Hezbollah is, and can they really police if they don't have that basic information?
Well, this is what the Metropolitan Police have said in response. The prescribed status of Hezbollah, Hamas and other groups is included in the briefings given to officers deployed to police-related events. But we recognise this video shows we need to do more to make sure the details of those briefings are fully understood.
You can say that again. OK, let's cross over now to former Detective Superintendent at Scotland Yard, Shabnam Chowdhury. Shabnam, what's your view on this? To me, it shows two Met Police officers who are completely out of their depth.
I think there's a little bit of that in terms of being out of their depth and understanding what's actually going on globally. They've gone to this protest as part of their roles and their responsibilities. These are probably local neighbourhood officers or officers from a response team who don't normally get involved in public order events. But I think there's a couple of other things here. The Met have acknowledged that perhaps the briefing was poor. What they have said is that Hezbollah, Hamas are part of prescribed organisations, but what they haven't probably clarified with the officers are if you get the what if ask questions. So if ask certain questions about what's going on in the area, they don't seem to know about that. But I do agree that with police officers, they are in a bit of a difficult position. They're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. Part of their vetting process is to have absolutely no affiliations to any kind of prescribed organisations. They don't get involved with political views. They're there to be impartial. They're there to actually spot if there is any criminal activity. And I think that's where the confusion came. In terms of the opinions that were given as far as they were concerned, they didn't want to get involved in that. But if there was some form of criminal activity, i.e. there were some banners or there was some chanting or there was something that goes against the legislation in law, then they would have acted appropriately.
They wouldn't have had a clue, though, Shabnam, based on that video. Well, they wouldn't have had a clue. If someone was holding up a sign saying, I love Hezbollah, or I support Hezbollah, or I support Hamas, by the sounds of these two police officers, they wouldn't have done anything.
No, I don't agree, actually. I think that's where the confusion came. I think the fact is that these are not willing to give opinions or views on something, but they will have been given briefings on certain elements of what they should and can act or can't act upon. And I think there's been confusion. I think the Met need to be do better briefings with their officers so that they have a better understanding of it. Thousands of officers within policing, thousands of people don't actually understand what's going on globally. And these officers are probably, to a degree, thinking, if I say one thing, I'm going to be in trouble. If I don't say one thing, I'm going to be in trouble. I'm here to spot if there's any criminal activity going on. I'm completely focused on that. But I do accept, and I should think that, well, the Met have already acknowledged that they need to do better briefings for their officers to make them understand when they go to these protests, actually, what is it about and what can you do to protect people, but also to reassure them, because that member of the public clearly didn't feel very reassured at all.
I suppose it's just hard to enforce the law if you're publicly stating you don't know what the law is, if you don't know that Hezbollah is a prescribed terrorist organisation. You don't know the difference between the terrorists in Hezbollah and the government of Lebanon. I mean, you don't have to understand a lot of the intricacies in a very complicated region of the world to understand, you know, the few groups that the government has actually prescribed as terrorists.
I agree, but what I'm saying to you is that they don't necessarily know what the political status is in what's going on. But what I'm saying is they've been given strict instructions or direct type of briefings that have been miscommunicated or that they didn't understand them, and that they do need to learn to understand those situations better, particularly when they're going into these protests, because they're week in, week out, whatever type of protest it is, whether it's just Stop All or something else. But there needs to be clearer briefings for the officers. They need to have a better knowledge and understanding of what they're actually there for. But I do feel for the officers to a certain degree, because I think that they are in a really difficult position when it comes to giving an opinion, or whether it comes to giving a view. If it was me, I would have probably said, I'm aware that they're a proscribed organisation, but I have no view on it either way. But that's not necessarily what they were told in the what if asked questions.
OK, well, Shabnam Chowdhury, thank you very much indeed, former Detective Superintendent at Scotland Yard. I mean, I'm sorry, it was a vigil for the death of the leader of a prescribed terrorist organisation in the UK. That's all you need to know, really.
Yeah.
All you need to know. You don't need to know about the intricacies of Lebanese politics. You don't need to know about the intricacies of the Middle East conflict. I understand it's difficult, but I think it's something's going wrong at the top. Does Mark Rowley have to take, responsibility for this?
I just feel a bit sorry for these police officers, to be honest, who clearly didn't know why they were there, what was going on.
I don't think it's good enough, though. I don't think it's good enough. People, are worried about what they're seeing day in, day out on our streets. Yeah. And they want to know that if the law is the law, it will be enforced, and at least the police will understand that a certain group is a terrorist organisation. They don't even need to know why exactly. They don't need to know why it's been prescribed. All they need to know is that it is.
Goes some way to explain why some of these chants haven't shown any action. Maybe the police were just sitting there completely bamboozled, not knowing what they were hearing.
Oh, and don't get it onto the different flags as well. I get it's difficult. I get it's difficult, but this has to come from the top, surely. Wow. Anyway, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Let us know your thoughts on that. We've got lots more coming up, including how the European Union is back pushing for the UK to join its overseas peacekeeping missions. Is that one step towards an EU army? That's next.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Ed Barker, a talented saxophonist and clarinetist from London, has had a remarkable journey in the music industry marked by significant achievements and an unusual crossover into the political sphere. Having honed his musical skills from a young age, he played in both the National Youth Orchestra and the National Youth Jazz Orchestra. In 2012, he became the solo saxophonist for pop legend George Michael. His reputation in music opened doors in politics, where he's worked with various leading Conservative members of Parliament and played a role in a number of major campaigns. To tell us more about the harmonious relationship between music and politics, I'm delighted to be joined by Ed Barker. This is quite puzzling, actually. How did a reputation in music get you into politics?
It's a good question. It's probably a question I'm still wrestling with at the age of 40. How's it happened? But somehow I've managed to do both, and I still enjoy doing them both at a high level. I think it's a simple thing of, when you're in politics, you're known as the saxophone guy, and when you're in the saxophone music industry world, you're known as the weird conservative political guy. And so it's just something people can remember you by, regardless of how good you are at either of those two things. I think it's just a device that people can kind of just latch onto to remember you.
But it's the word weird, because I imagine that most people in the music industry are probably somewhat to the left, yeah. Certainly all the ones that I've met are. I mean, I can't imagine you and George Michael discussing Tory politics with approval, or maybe I'm wrong about that.
No, I don't tend to talk politics with people kind of when I'm not in politics somehow. And whenever there are political disagreements, you know, people kind of, I think GB News actually gets closest to kind of embodying this spirit. People are very kind of up for learning from each other's kind of experiences and views and not biting each other's heads off.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top 2 for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, on Thursday as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christie, for the live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision Time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. this Thursday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 26 minutes past 12. Now, could the UK join a burgeoning European army? Well, EU countries are urging Britain to participate in Brussels-led peacekeeping missions.
OK, peacekeeping missions. Well, in a meeting with EU foreign secretaries yesterday, David Lammy was asked to consider allowing the UK to join the Union's common security and defence policy missions.
It all follows Sir Keir Starmer's vow to improve ties with Europe after the Labour Party won the election. OK, well, defence analyst Chris Newton joins us now to discuss this. Peacekeeping missions, that sounds quite soft, doesn't sound like a massive military exercise. But it is a step towards having the UK involved in proper, you know, potentially war action. Do you think this is actually a possibility? Is this something we'd go for?
Good afternoon. Yes, the Common Security and Defence Policy, EU peacekeeping missions, there are 24 of them going on at the moment, and they're civilian and military missions in places ranging from the Sahel, Bosnia, Kosovo, and so forth. And I think we should consider any requests on an ad hoc case-by-case basis. But my concern about this is that, as you allude to, is that this opens the door for further integration, defence integration with the European Union, participation in its structures, PESCO, permanent structured cooperation, more deepening integration with the EU defence structures, and that would reduce our strategic flexibility. And remember that Britain's interests are not just continental or not just European, they're global. We have interests around the world. We've formed AUKUS, for example. We're participating in operations in the Red Sea and in the Middle East as well. So I'm concerned about the potential here, given that this is the Labour government as well, Labour negotiating this, for potential sort of integration with the structures of EU defence, and thereby potentially reducing our flexibility on strategy, procurement, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it did seem very strange yesterday. Of course, David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, going to this meeting in Brussels, the first time outside of a crisis that a Foreign Secretary post-Brexit has gone to one of these meetings. Very, very strange sort of thing to do. And he seems to have come back with this offer, a sort of quid pro quo. Well, you want closer relations, you're going to have to accept sort of this military compact. I mean, is it really sort of as simple as that Britain's going to have to really accept EU governance in some areas of our armed forces if we want closer relations?
Well, we've seen during the Brexit negotiations that the EU plays hardball, and they lay down, you know, all kinds of demands and negotiating positions, and it's really up to the British government to decide whether they accept this or whether they're going to negotiate and resist some of this. And of course, given that despite the government's rhetoric about, accepting Brexit and so forth, my concern about this is that this ties us into the EU structures through the back door, without us having a real discussion about whether this is best for our foreign and defence policy interests.
It does look like that, and I mean, that is the history of our involvement in the European Union before the Brexit vote. Sort of slow movements into various treaties and closer integration, not always with a vote, not always with any democracy to it. Thank you very much indeed, Chris Newton, defence analyst. Lots of you getting in touch to say, no, we're part of NATO already. Why would we want to be under Brussels orders, says PW.
It's the steady drift to move away from the Americans and towards the Europeans. And is that necessarily a good thing? I mean, does this country benefit when we're further away from the Americans? I'm not so sure.
Well, we want more flexibility, as you say, when it comes to strategy and procurement and all of those types of things. Anyway, in just a minute, we're going to have the very latest from this morning's cabinet meeting. Amidst all the growing anticipation of tax rises in the next budget, we've got some breaking news lines for you after the headlines.
Emily, thank you and good afternoon. The top stories: the Prime Minister and the Health Secretary have both said that new weight loss jabs could help boost the economy in Britain by getting people back into work. West Streeting suggested the latest generation of medicines, including Ozempic, could be life-changing for individuals and would ease pressure on the NHS. Experts, though, have warned in the past that the drug is not a quick fix or a replacement for eating well and exercising, and should only be offered under medical supervision. Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury James Murray told GB News it's good for the economy.
We want to make sure that people who are not working at the moment for any reasons, but obviously obesity is one of them, we want to support them to get back into work. And these weight loss jabs are just one option for helping people to lose weight. There'll obviously be a discussion between a patient and their doctor to work out the best way for them to lose weight. These weight loss jabs play a role as part of the overall set of interventions that you can make to help people lose weight and to where they can work, get back into work, which is good for them and good for the economy.
A court has been told that a neighbour heard a single high-pitched scream of someone in pain 2 days before Sarah Sharif was killed. The 10-year-old was beaten with objects, burnt with an iron and bitten in the weeks before her death. Her body was found in an upstairs bedroom on a bottom bunk bed of her home in Surrey on the 10th of August last year, after her father, Irfan Sharif, called police and confessed to killing her after fleeing to Pakistan. The minicab driver's on trial along with Sarah's stepmother and uncle. They all deny murder and causing or allowing the death of a child. And children who are doom scrolling for hours a day on smartphones are at risk of widespread harm. According to Labour MP Josh McAllister, the equivalent of seatbelts legislation is needed to help them manage addictive content for children. Tomorrow, McAllister will introduce a private member's bill in Parliament on protecting children from harms caused by excessive screen time. The bill will call for legal requirements to be introduced so all schools in England are mobile-free zones, and is also expected to call for the age at which companies can get data consent from children without parental permission to be raised from 13 to 16. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Most places dry today, but fairly drab out there this morning, dull, misty, murky. It should get a bit brighter through the day, and it is quite mild. The main exception to that, northern Scotland, where it is a cold start, but it's also a bright start. Some sunny skies here, but elsewhere, sunshine in short supply. A bit of drizzle here and there on some of the higher routes in particular, but most places brightening up, the cloud breaking up a little to reveal some sunnier skies, particularly in parts of the Midlands, North Wales, the northern parts of Northern Ireland, with some sunshine, temperatures getting up into the mid to high teens, and even where it's cloudy, it is still quite mild for the time of year. As we go through the afternoon into the evening, increasing chance of seeing some showers coming up across Dorset, Somerset, Devon and Cornwall. Elsewhere across England and Wales, most places dry through this evening. Northern Ireland also likely to see some showers coming in for the evening rush hour. Generally a fine end to the day across Scotland, staying fairly cloudy. Some brighter skies developing through the afternoon across the central belt, and generally a fine day across northern Scotland. It'll turn quite cool here through the evening as it stays largely clear, but cloud will spill northwards through the night and the showers becoming more extensive. So most of us seeing some wet weather through the night, and parts of Wales, northwest England, southern Scotland and Northern Ireland could see some quite heavy pulses of rain. East of England, mostly staying dry, and it will be a very mild night. Look at those temperatures, some places staying in the mid-teens. So it's a very warm start to Wednesday. A wet day, though, for parts of the west. Again, Wales, northwest England, southern Scotland, the east of Northern Ireland, and the southwest of England seeing some quite heavy showers coming and going through the day. Not much in the way of rain, though. Tomorrow over eastern England, some brighter skies, bit of sunshine. Could see those temperatures up to 20 or 21, and even where it's wet, it'll still be pretty warm.
The latest GB News travel. On the M8, queue in traffic and a lane closure on the exit slip road to the M74 southbound to an earlier vehicle fire just at junction 20 for the M74 interchange. It's also slow on the northbound side of the M6, a lane closure to a broken down vehicle at junction 4. Westbound on the M4, the entry slip road is closed at Maidenhead at junction 8 to emergency repairs causing heavy traffic. It's also very slow for the eastbound side of the M27, a lane closure to a broken down vehicle at Southampton Airport. Coastbound on the M2 though, all traffic is cleared. An earlier accident from junction 5 through to junction 6 has removed all lanes reopened and traffic now flowing. So for now, that's your very latest travel news.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
OK, good afternoon, Britain. 12:37 is the time. Now, just before the break, we were discussing Britain's new security cooperation with the European Union. What exactly will it entail?
Yes, the Foreign Secretary David Lammy became the first British Foreign Secretary to participate in a regular meeting with his European counterparts over in Brussels since Brexit.
Now, despite his historic visit to Luxembourg, the government's focus has now shifted on the upcoming budget, with a cabinet meeting this morning.
Well, GB News reporter Adam Cherry is live for us in Downing Street. Adam, you've been talking to the Prime Minister's official spokesperson. Firstly, on the issue of this EU army proposal, what does the government say?
Well, the government say they want to strengthen cooperation on security and defence, but they're not going any further than that at the moment. As you say, David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, met with his foreign counterparts in Luxembourg, and it was reported in those meetings that Britain said they're not joining that pact, that policy, that security and defence policy yet, but they may do in the future as part of their closer cooperation, their reset with Brussels. Again, the official spokesman was pushed on this a little bit further today, but he wouldn't go any further than those comments and the already released words that we have just discussed. So it's up in the air. It may happen. Obviously, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has said he's very keen to reset those relationships with the European Union, with Brussels, and it looks like this is just a part of that.
It's very interesting. We know that Brussels will want something in return if they are to give something to us. Anyway, in terms of voter ID, now this is a contentious issue, isn't it? What's going on with that?
So the government are proposing that the veteran cards will be used as acceptable ID in future elections. Those proposals have been backed. They're also conducting a broader review of voter ID rules in general. By the way, I should say none of this, they said today, none of this will be in place if they change anything as a result of this review with regards to ID before the local elections next year anyway. So whatever is decided on this as a result of this review will take some time. Of course, it was this year that ID cards were required in elections for the first time in the locals this year and going forward. Whether that's now rolled back permanently is up for debate. Again, the spokesman today, not particularly clear on that, but saying that a review is nonetheless underway.
Very, very interesting that a review is underway, but presumably this means the government is open to scrapping the idea of showing your ID when you go to vote.
Well, they may be, and again, they were asked about that today in that meeting. Didn't say no, didn't say yes, but as you say, the fact that there's a review into this, given that it's a relatively new policy anyway, would suggest that they are open to it at some stage. But again, it will take a long time.
Another review. Fantastic, eh?
Love a decisive government.
Just a recent policy change from the previous government, and now another review before it's decided whether they're going to axe it or keep it. Very interesting. Adam Cherry, also, this issue of Taylor Swift and this VVIP security that she got before her concert in London. We're learning today that Sadiq Khan was involved. Sue Gray had conversations with Taylor Swift's mum, where her mum insisted on this, apparently. Also, the Attorney General getting involved. What have you heard from Number 10 on this?
Oh, not very much. So they were asked whether in the ministerial code this is actually a conflict or a perceived conflict of interest, given that Starmer met or may have met with Taylor Swift personally, or at least had conversations with her team, with her mum, the management, and then seemingly had tickets after those meetings and after she had received the security that she may have been asking for, or a management were demanding. Now, again, a lot of obfuscation, which is kind of the theme of these lobby press briefings. Didn't quite commit to saying anything concrete on this, other than that you would expect government to have meetings about matters of security. At the time, of course, you remember that there was a terrorist scare in Austria before Taylor Swift came to Wembley. So that is justification for why the government was involved at a high level in over-security matters. But operationally, those decisions were taken by the Metropolitan Police. That's the line. Whether it holds, it remains to be seen. There are a lot of questions about it in the briefing, I must say. So I would expect to hear more about this in the coming days.
Very interesting, Adam, because the Met Police initially said there was absolutely no credible threat here in London and that they didn't need this would go against long-held protocols. But hey, something changed.
I wouldn't have wanted to be the government's official spokesman in the face of just question after question after question of this issue, which sounds like took place then, and just the same sort of non-answer again and again.
They're not saying anything about tax, are they? No. So may as well ask about Taylor Swift.
Adam, you were in that room, obviously, with political editors of various newspapers. They're deciding what to put on the front pages tomorrow. Did you get a sense that there might be a Taylor Swift story brewing for the newspapers tomorrow morning?
It wouldn't shock me, yeah. There was a lot of attention on it. Again, particularly that point about a conflict of interest. Why did he go back a second time, the Prime Minister, having already seen this concert in all its glory once? And also, particularly, the important point to remember here is he recently paid back £6,000, and those were, we understand, over those tickets. So if there's no conflict of interest there, why did he pay that money back? So keep an eye on those front pages. I think there'll be some interesting stuff.
Adam Cherry, thank you very much indeed for being there at the Cabinet meeting. Adam Cherry, our political correspondent there.
Yeah, lifting the lid on that lobby briefing, which so often sort of gives you the clue of where the stories are going in the future.
A clue, but absolutely no concrete answers. We're not allowed to know anything. You have to read between the lines, don't you, when it comes to these kind of spokesperson meetings? Please tell me something about tax. No. Please tell me something about voter ID. Oh, there'll be a review. Oh, please tell me something about Taylor Swift. No, can't tell you anything. Something was going on there. Why were the Met Police forced to completely change their mind, change their protocols for one pop star billionaire? Doesn't make sense. Prince Harry must be rather upset.
That's a good point.
He must be very annoyed. Can you imagine?
Goodness me.
Billionaire pop star Taylor Swift, who can afford her own security. She was
gets
granted
the blue lights
it.
and he doesn't.
Because she was bringing more to the economy.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Stay with us because there is indeed more on that escort scandal, that police escort scandal, I should say, after this.
And other stories too.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
You know, is the fact that electric blanket sales going up actually a good thing? This means that people are switched on to the problems that the winter might hold, that they might have some defence against it, or is it a real indictment of a Labour government that they aren't going to be able to, support elderly people in their hour of need?
Good morning, by the way.
Morning.
I think the sale of electric blankets may well be because we've had this cold snap because of the Arctic weather coming in from the north. However, I think it's an absolute reality that, as your clip said, that over 800,000 elderly people who are eligible for the winter fuel allowance, who can get pension credits, are struggling to apply. And so what is absolutely essential at the moment is that all of those older people who are eligible for pension credits do apply and do get what's owed to them. The benefits are owed to them. And the average that people will get through pension credits is about £78 a week. So that's definitely going to make a massive difference to people who are really struggling.
What can organisations like yours do to encourage people to, I guess, educate themselves on technology and make that first step into the digital world, which is very intimidating at times?
Absolutely, and that's what we do at Good Things Foundation. So we're a national charity. We work all across the whole of the UK. And in your clip there, you had Links Digital, and they're a member of what we call the National Digital Inclusion Network, which is a network of local charities, small local community organisations, food banks, job centres, old people's clubs. So anyone, any organisation at that local level.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 12:48, and let's get stuck into some views, because why not? You've got a lot of them. Dave says, what good would joining an EU task force do? France can't even protect us from boats leaving their breaches. That's got 5 thumbs up there, Dave. Very good. Dorothy says, this is not a good move from the UK point of view, especially when we're part of the UN. They only want us for our money. This is referring to these talks about closer defence and security cooperation with the EU.
I have to say, quite a few people getting stuck in on Taylor Swift. Catherine says, how dare Taylor Swift's mother even ask for this? Pay for it yourself. And Richard says, so Harry, a member of the royal family, can't have security, but a second-rate pop star who gives away free tickets can. Well, I mean, second-rate, first-rate, I mean, it's a matter of opinion, but point stands.
And Frank's given his view on which members of the cabinet should take the Ozempic jab. I won't read out who, because I don't want to be nasty to individuals, but you made me laugh. You made me laugh, Frank.
No, quite a few views coming in on the EU army proposals as well. Let's have a look, because Robin says this government is selling out 17 million people by the back door, along with the EU army, and throwing in there the zero ID card checks as well.
Yeah.
That idea that there's this review into voter ID going on.
And PW points out that Starmer's already scrapped the EU Oversight Committee. Has he done this deliberately so he can't see the effects of his meddling with the European Union? That's quite a good point. But let's move on, because as we were saying, Scotland Yard were convinced by the Attorney General to award Taylor Swift a taxpayer-funded blue light escort amid fears of being held liable for security security breaches, according to reports this morning.
Well, Taylor Swift's mother and manager, Andrea, met with the PM's Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, threatening to cancel all London shows if the blue lights escort, usually reserved for royals and heads of state, of course, was not provided.
So Taylor Swift's mum threatened our government into submission by the looks of things. This comes as it was revealed London Mayor Sadiq Khan, who attended one of the shows for free, was also involved in these discussions. Who wasn't?
Well, for more, let's get the views of the former head of royal protection at Scotland Yard, Di Davies. Di, I mean, this is fairly extraordinary. I mean, I can't remember a time when a Commonwealth Garden celebrity got a blue lights escort. As far as I'm aware, this is only reserved for the royals or visiting heads of state.
Well, good afternoon. It's turning into what I used to watch in the 60s as a Brian Rix farce, with different characters coming on, all giving a different comedy version, and it was hilarious. Unfortunately, we're talking about His Majesty's government. This isn't hilarious. There are serious questions to be asked of a number of ministers, and I'm sorry if I'm slurring slightly. I've just come from the dentist. So I'm seriously concerned. As I mentioned in a certain newspaper this morning who asked me to do an article, it stinks. And the whole issue of gratuities for ministers stinks. I don't know why whoever wrote these rules think it's all right for ministers to get freebies, which I suspect they don't declare to HM Customs and Revenue. So why is it the rest of us, policemen, civil servants, etc., teachers, you can't take gratuities, but it's OK for these individuals? There's no such thing as a free meal in my 50 years plus of policing and security, home and worldwide. Serious questions need to be asked. Who said what to whom? And I understand why the police are reticent to disclose, because arguably it could show a complete lack of leadership and bottle, presumably at the top. Well, that's not new to me and many of your listeners, I don't think. The current crop, I wouldn't follow out of idle curiosity. And I'm sorry to have to say that, because I was a very proud member of the Metropolitan Police.
I mean, what does this say about our current government, that they could be so easily persuaded by potentially Taylor Swift's mum? Saying, OK, well, we're not going to have these concerts if you don't give us this top security that's usually only for the royals, usually only for heads of state, and the fact, obviously, that some of these people got free tickets at the end of it all. What does it say?
Well, it doesn't say much for being moral and ethical. Being ethical, surely, as a government, should be the example you set. In their first 100 days, virtually all the cabinet members, as far as I can see, have had freebies. Now, what the motive behind those giving those freebies remains to be seen. But I say again, there's no such thing as a free meal. And unfortunately, we have a prime minister now who used to lambast the Tories, and they were bad enough in many instances, how can you get 100,000 plus in freebies and call yourself morally upright? I just don't buy it. But going back to the whole issue, this is nonsensical. In my 4 years in command of royalty protection as the chief superintendent, the OCU commander, I never had a request like this. And if I had, you would have had to work very hard and persuade me that where the risk was so great, a pop star should have this kind of security. I can't think, unless there is intelligence to tell you there is such, and then you'd have to consider the great British public. At the moment, we're at the middle level of security in this country. As far as I know, at the moment, there's no inclination, and there wasn't, to upgrade it. There was no intelligence, as far as I know, that the actions of two men in Vienna any effect.
Well, that's the thing. We were told that there was absolutely no credible threat in London or for these concerts. We're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much. Very interesting to get your perspective. Di Davies, former head of Royal Protection at Scotland Yard. What do you make of that? Get your views in. This Good Afternoon Britain, gbnews.com/your stay. Stay with us.
A chilly start
start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A lot of cloud across the UK today. Damp in places, particularly towards the south and southwest, with heavier rain following on later. What we've got at the moment is a very mild southerly airflow across the country, with frontal systems slowly advancing from the west, but it's actually from the south where we're seeing the cloud build and increasingly spells of rain arriving. Initially the rain will be light and patchy. So it's fairly low cloud covering the hills of the southwest as well as Wales and Northern Ireland. Drizzly conditions here. But towards the north and the east, some brightness, especially for northern Scotland. Wherever you are, it is going to be a mild afternoon. Temperatures up to the high teens in places. However, as we head into the evening, we'll see some heavier and more persistent rain arriving into Devon, Cornwall, Somerset and then South Wales as well. Northern Ireland also seeing those outbreaks of rain move in. But for eastern and northern parts of the UK, it stays mostly dry, although with fairly thick cloud in places. The one exception, Caithness, Sutherland, Orkney, where there will be brighter skies as we end the afternoon and go into the evening. Then overnight, those heavy and persistent spells of rain move up across western and southern parts of the UK. Could cause some issues for Northern Ireland because of the widespread accumulations here, but elsewhere it's on and off rain through the night. The southeast sees some clear spells and the far north of Scotland, but it is a very mild night with temperatures in places staying at 16 or 17 Celsius. Then a grotty start to Wednesday with a lot of cloud. Again, spells of rain moving through Scotland, Northern Ireland, western parts of England and Wales. I think East Anglia and the southeast will see some brightness at times, and it'll be warmest here with temperatures of 20 or 21 Celsius. Mild elsewhere, but that rain sticking around for much of the day.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead.
We love making our audience big cash winners, and you really could be next with £36,000 tax-free cash in your bank account.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter to do it. And if I can win, anyone can win.
For another chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 25th of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Earlier this week, Olympic swimmer Adam Peaty finally proposed to his girlfriend, because I've been waiting for this, the daughter of Gordon Ramsay, with a gorgeous yellow diamond ring.
Yeah, so the demand for coloured diamonds in the last 10 years has soared by, guess how much, 77% between 2010 and 2019. Joining us now to tell us more about some of the hottest trends in the diamond world is dealer to the stars, Neil Dutson. Good morning, Neil. Morning, Ben. And I've got one of your exemplary examples. Look at this bad boy.
So
What's
that's
huge?
That's a very rare Muso Colombian emerald. And it's alpine green translucent, so it's a really stunning
See if we
colour.
get a close-up.
So, yeah, so pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive.
Can I be very crude and ask how much this is worth?
So value is £200,000.
How much, sorry?
£200,000. Now, the reason is its rarity. It's minor oiling. It's very, very, very pretty. The two diamonds on the side are D-colour, flawless diamonds, just to accentuate the setting.
Neil, how did you get into diamonds?
I studied diamonds in Antwerp. So
Wow.
Antwerp used to be the diamond capital of the world,
Yes.
really.
Yeah.
85% of the world's diamonds go through Antwerp, or used to. And now Dubai has taken over. And yeah, I just went to a school there. I learnt about diamonds, and I just didn't want to be seen off in the future.
Neil, I'm very concerned I'm going to drop 200 grand's worth of diamonds into my cup of tea, so can I give that back to you?
Absolutely.
But I can hold one if you like.
Oh, well, I've got
Neil.
a lovely one here.
Thank you.
So this is a fancy vivid yellow. It's 8 carats.
This is my dream ring, just so you know, for this hand. This would be
Is it big
amazing.
enough?
So what would I call this? A yellow?
So that's a natural, fancy, vivid yellow diamond. Value £300,000. So,
it fits
depends
like
where
a
you're
glove.
buying it from.
If
right?
it's like a glove, Neil,
Oh.
maybe it's a sign. It's meant to be mine.
Definitely a sign, yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Tuesday, the 15th of October. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
Jabs for jobs. New plans to inject out-of-work couch potatoes with fat jabs are being considered by the Health Secretary, all to get Britain back to work. Is this the way to get people off the sofa and back to the grind?
Terrorist blind spot. 2 police officers have been caught out refusing to accept Hezbollah as a terrorist organisation, calling the law a matter of opinion. But aren't the police enforcing the law on our streets?
And the US presidential race continues to take rather a lot of bizarre twists as Kamala Harris has become embroiled in a plagiarism scandal. This follows an even stranger move from Donald Trump, who decided to play Ave Maria during a medical emergency at his rally. We'll speak about both. Oh, hello.
We're over here.
We're over here. We spoke about
I was going to move to the other chair. And
we decided to, pack it in. Had enough.
Yeah.
Here we are. Anyway, good afternoon,
More personality
Britain.
in that chair.
Good afternoon, Britain. Lots of you have been getting in touch about that quite revealing clip that we showed a little bit earlier of 2 Metropolitan Police officers at an event that was dubbed a bit of advertised as a vigil for the former leader, now dead leader of Hezbollah, the prescribed terrorist organisation in Lebanon. And these police officers didn't appear to actually know either what Hezbollah was or that it was a prescribed terrorist organisation, calling it a matter of opinion. What does this say about the way our police are briefed for these events, and what does it say about their ability to police our streets?
Now, you can look at it 2 ways. Number one, I couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for these police officers who were clearly out of their depth. They hadn't a clue what was going on, and they were just trying to sort of obfuscate. But on the other hand, they're supposed to be policing this protest. No wonder we see time and time again on social media people pointing out chants and people supporting terrorist groups and flags celebrating terrorist action. There was a case.
I don't understand why you feel sorry for these 2 police officers. OK, they've been caught out being ignorant, if you're generous, OK. But I'm sorry, but if you are there policing a vigil for a dead Hezbollah leader, you should probably know that Hezbollah is a prescribed terrorist organisation in this country. Nigel says, I don't believe that the Met Police don't know what Hezbollah is. If they don't know, then who is defending London against terrorists? Nobody. June says, surely the police are informed of terrorist groups, e.g. ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah. They're a security risk to this country.
See, I can totally believe that lots of people don't know what Hezbollah is.
They're police officers. They need to know the law.
Yeah, they should. They should know. And I kind of feel sorry for them that they don't.
Well, I feel less safe as a result of knowing that our police officers don't know that Hezbollah is a prescribed terrorist organisation. And I'm sure lots of people will be sitting there thinking, what on earth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, gbnews.com/your say. Please do get in touch on that and everything else. But let's get to the news headlines with Tatiana.
Tom, Emily, thank you. The top stories. The Prime Minister and the Health Secretary have both said that new weight loss jabs could help boost the economy in Britain by getting people back into work. West Streeting suggested the latest generation of medicines, including Ozempic, could be life-changing for individuals and would ease pressure on the NHS. Experts, though, have warned in the past that the drug is not a quick fix or a replacement for eating well and exercising, and should only be offered under medical supervision. Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury James Murray told GB News it is good for the economy.
We want to make sure that people who are not working at the moment for any reasons, but obviously obesity is one of them, we want to support them to get back into work. And these weight loss jabs are just one option for helping people to lose weight. There'll obviously be a discussion between a patient and their doctor to work out the best way for them to lose weight. These weight loss jabs play a role as part of the overall set of interventions that you can make to help people lose weight and to where they can work, get back into work, which is good for them and good for the economy.
Members of the public in Nottingham have spoken to GB News about their mixed opinions on weight loss jabs.
I don't think it's fair. No, I think the money could be spent better elsewhere.
I think it's a bit insulting, and also I don't think it's a good idea. You need to lose it naturally. Do some exercise.
It saves on the money that we spend out for health and everything. So yeah, I think it's a very good idea.
Mixed feelings. I think if it's going to save a life, then yes, it's worth it. If it's going to save GP time, nurses' time, yes, it's worth it. But if it's not, education is still the best thing.
In other news, a court's been told a neighbour heard a single high-pitched scream of someone in pain 2 days before Sarah Sharif was killed. The 10-year-old was beaten with objects, burnt with an iron and bitten in the weeks before her death. Her body was found in an upstairs bedroom on a bottom bunk bed of her home in Surrey on the 10th of August last year after her father, Irfan Sharif, called police and confessed to killing her after fleeing to Pakistan. The minicab drivers on trial, along with Sarah's stepmother and uncle, they all deny murder and causing or allowing the death of a child. Elsewhere, the mother of Salisbury poisonings victim Dawn Sturgis has said her family found comfort that she was the only person to be killed by the Russian nerve agent Novichok, when the potential harm was much, much more. The inquiry's been told it was pure chance that Dawn sprayed herself with the substance before meeting up with her daughter. Dawn's mother, Caroline Sturgis, says Dawn had plans to meet her daughter before she discovered the perfume bottle containing the substance and said it was a solace to her family that Dawn's daughter was not also killed in the incident. 44-year-old Dawn died after applying the nerve agent to her skin in July 2018. It came after the attempted murders of former spy Sergei Skripal, his daughter Yulia, and then police officer Nick Bailey, who were poisoned in Salisbury in March that year. Now, children who are doom scrolling for hours a day on smartphones are at risk of widespread harm. According to Labour MP Josh McAllister, the equivalent of seatbelt legislation is needed to help them manage addictive content for children. Tomorrow, McAllister will introduce the private member's bill in Parliament on protecting children from harms caused by excessive screen time. The bill will call for legal requirements to be introduced so all schools in England are mobile-free zones, and is also expected to call for the age at which companies can get data consent from children without parental permission to be raised from 13 to 16. Now moving to the Middle East now, and Foreign Office Minister Annalise Dodds has told the Commons that she was gravely concerned to hear about attacks on UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon. That's as the UN Secretary-General has condemned the large number of civilian casualties that have taken place in northern Gaza. The UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency claimed 10 people were killed after an Israeli attack on a food supply centre. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees said shells hit inside and outside the centre yesterday morning as people tried to get food handouts. The IDF has said it would review that incident. The UN peacekeeping chief has said that the UN peacekeepers will stay in all of their positions in Lebanon, despite the calls made by the Israeli authorities to vacate the positions that are in the vicinity of the blue line between Lebanon and Israel. Israel expanded its targets in its war with Hezbollah militants in Lebanon yesterday, killing at least 21 people in an airstrike in the north. And Sean Diddy Combs has been hit by a new batch of lawsuits accusing him of sexual harassment against 6 people, including a 16-year-old boy. The new wave of lawsuits filed yesterday accuses Combs, also known as Puff Daddy or P. Diddy, of raping women, sexually assaulting men and molesting the boy. At least 6 lawsuits were filed against the hip-hop mogul in a federal court in New York City. All were filed anonymously. More than 100 alleged victims are now believed to be in the process of taking legal action against Combs in the wake of his sex trafficking arrest last month. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 1. Now, here's one for you. Free fat jabs for the unemployed. No, not science fiction, potentially government policy. Obese, jobless Brits could be given free weight loss medicine to help them get back into work.
OK, will it work? Well, weight-related illness cost the economy, apparently, a shocking £7.4 billion. I mean, it's hard to get to these types of sums. It's hard to work out exactly how much obesity ends up costing us, whether it's through NHS treatment, whether it's through the benefits bill, how many people in this country are off work purely because of obesity-related illness. I mean, it could be hundreds of thousands, millions of people. Anyway, we're going to speak to Dr. David Lloyd, who's with us on this one. David, thank you very much indeed for your time. What do you make of this as a policy proposal? Free weight loss jabs of the Ozempic, Mounjaro variety for people who are on benefits or unemployed because of weight-related issues?
Well, I obviously I could speak for hours about this, but I'll give you two key points. I actually asked your favourite AI this question a couple of months ago, actually. I said, what would happen if everybody with a BMI of over 30 was given free weight loss jabs by the NHS? What would be the savings or cost to this country? And the numbers came out quite staggeringly, actually. It would cost £46 billion to actually give the 2.6 million people that need these drugs to get them to lose the weight. But you would get in return for that economic productivity, health changes and health benefits amounting to something like £200 billion a year. So if the AI has got it right, it is a no-brainer. And the second point is that, well, second and third point is that we know these drugs are remarkably effective in helping people who really do need to lose weight. And we know that the negotiating power of something like the NHS with these drug companies that are making enormous profits out of these drugs means that as a country, we can get these drugs very much cheaper than you can, say, in the USA, where patients are having to fork out thousands of dollars a month, whereas we can get these drugs for a couple of £100 a month. So,
well, of course, in the United States, most people are insured, so it's not actually coming out of their pocket. It's coming out of their insurance pockets.
Won't pay for it. That's the problem, is that it's an actual out-of-pocket expense in most Americans. So we're getting a tremendous financial advantage in using it in the NHS, and amazing advantages in terms of helping people who've got real health problems with being overweight.
I guess the hope is that if you're very much overweight and perhaps you have conditions related to your weight, I don't know, whether it might be heart disease or a bad back or sore joints that prevent you from working, that if you lose a bit of weight thanks to this jab, you'll be back straight at it, back to the grind, you'll be a complete constructive individual again. I mean, is that really realistic? Could it be that some people who are morbidly obese have other issues going on?
Yes, no, so morbidly obese people sometimes can't even get out of their own houses because they're so big. So you're talking about people who've got very real health problems. And yes, if you lose lots and lots of weight, you do get better in a lot of different ways. So it's really beneficial to everybody. And the benefits we see as GPs are really overwhelming. We've only been able to use this treatment for people with diabetes in general practice. But the data is overwhelming that people who need to lose weight, who aren't diabetic, really will lose 10 or 20% of their weight because of these drugs.
It is absolutely fascinating to see this sort of revolution in healthcare. So often, for decades, there have been these sorts of quack solutions that don't work, cost an arm and a leg, and people go through all these fad diets and all the rest of it.
Absolutely. We've had full storms with weight loss drugs for decades. And most of them have turned out to be useless or, in fact, harmful, whereas the data for these ones, there's new positive data coming out every day. John Deanfield published a report a month ago which said that even if you didn't lose weight, you're going to have better heart health. And last week there was something about preventing dementia, and also helping with drug addiction, with alcohol and drugs as well.
Yeah.
So these really do seem to be drugs that work in a very particular way on the brain and the body axis. So you're looking at some very clever hormone symptoms and systems that are going on that really do seem to make a difference.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed for your time. Dr David Lloyd, you're an NHS GP. Curious. Let us know your thoughts on that. gbnews.com/your say. I mean, lots of people get in touch and say people just need to eat less and work out more and not use all these silly jabs.
I mean, no, it's true. People like those are the only two ways that you are going to lose weight: eat less and work out more. But if there's a drug that helps you eat less, an appetite suppressant, a semaglutide-based appetite suppressant like Ozempic, I mean, well, that's just helping you eat less. What's wrong with that?
Apparently it can affect your mood, though, and make you vomit a lot.
Oh, but if you're skinny, you feel very happy.
OK. Well, in other news, a couple of Metropolitan Police officers are facing quite a bit of criticism for not acknowledging Hezbollah as a terrorist organisation during a pro-Palestinian protest in London. It was also advertised as a vigil for the leader of Hezbollah.
Well, in a viral video, officers told a spectator that Hezbollah's status was a matter of opinion.
It's a vigil.
The death of the leader of Lebanon?
Right. Leader of Lebanon or leader of Hezbollah?
Hezbollah, that's it.
That's right. I'm not
Hezbollah.
Sorry, I don't take a lot of political interest because I'm not allowed to. But yeah, Hezbollah.
So they were mourning leader of terrorist organization.
Your opinion is up to you.
Well, Hezbollah is legally a terrorist organization.
Again, so your opinion is your opinion.
No, it's not my opinion. It's opinion of the government.
Okay, well, we're not allowed to take opinions.
Yeah.
OK, so a matter of law is also a matter of opinion.
Well, yeah, we should say what the Met Police said in response, which is that the prescribed status of Hezbollah, Hamas and other groups is included in the briefings given to the officers deployed to police-related events. But we recognise this video shows we need to do more to make sure those details of those briefings are fully understood.
OK.
But it sounds like they're really throwing the officers in it. We told them Hezbollah was a terrorist organisation, but they just didn't listen.
Well, we're joined by former Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville in the studio with us. Mike, thank you very much indeed for taking the time out of your afternoon. So, is this a case of these two police officers not doing their homework, not bothering to read this briefing that they all got?
Well, it's just totally unacceptable, isn't it? I mean, it's like being sent out on a burglary patrol and not what's the definition of burglary. It's a matter of opinion. Well, the definition of burglary is what it is. The fact that Hamas and Hezbollah are prescribed terrorist organisations is clear. And by being prescribed organisations, simply wearing things that support them, that is a criminal offence. And these briefings need to be improved. I mean, I remember as a young officer going to a football match and almost being told, well, listen to the older guys, they know what they're doing. Over time, things have got better, but how can it be that we've got officers on those duties who are not told this is an offence to do this thing? It's as clear as that. Where's the sergeant involved in this? Who's the inspector? And there would have been a superintendent of something giving that briefing, and it's just that they need to tighten this up because again, I was speaking to some Jewish friends, they're really afraid to come to central London, and this could be cracked down on if officers took appropriate action and just simply did their job and knew the law.
Should a vigil for a leader of a prescribed terrorist organisation in this country have been allowed to take place in our capital city?
No, it shouldn't have. I mean, I think all the time they try and say, it's a vigil for Lebanon or something. You know, they always try and put a smoke screen in front of it. And this is where the police have difficulties, that this smoke screen is put up. But any suspicion, they could have stopped that. And I know that the Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, is saying that they really need to look at how Northern Ireland polices things. Because in Northern Ireland, they've made clear that down this street, the parade doesn't go because that's a majority Catholic area, it's a Protestant parade, or vice versa. And something needs to be done like that because we are living in a society where Jewish people are afraid to go to central London. I just think that's really unacceptable.
Isn't there an issue of freedom of speech here? Of being a free society? Should you not be able to go out and hold a vigil for the most heinous things? Should you not be able to commemorate the loss of Osama bin Laden? I mean, obviously none of us would agree with the people doing that, but surely we'd support their right to be wrong.
Well, it would seem not. You know, if you look at the Terrorist Act of 2000, it makes it clear that to press support for any prescribed organisation, which Hezbollah and Hamas are, and to encourage others to do so is an offence. To wear badges or emblems or any clothing which suggests that reasonable grounds that you are a supporter is an offence. To post things on social media or publish them showing support is an offence. So there's a limit to where free speech goes. You cannot walk down the street saying Hezbollah are wonderful, I support them. That is a crime, and that's the end of it.
You'd have to argue for a change in the law if you wanted there to be freedom of speech in this case, because...
But I suppose there is an issue, though, that we have seen the police crack down very heavily on people who say certain things on social media, but not other things.
Well, this is the problem, I think, all the time, that these accusations of two-tier policing are denied. And you saw the footage of the commissioner, wasn't it, a month ago, storming, pushing past a journalist and knocking his camera, getting really angry about this accusation. But people are always going to say that, because if you go on social media, if you look at the time of the riots, people said some vile things. I'm going to burn down a mosque. These were people who were idiots, really. They had no facility to burn down a mosque. They had no real intention of burning down a mosque. They were just idiots saying vile things. Yet they're sent to prison for 15 months. Then you get people who walk down the street shouting from the river to the sea, and we know what that means. That means Israel being wiped out. That's as simple as that. People saying things which are crimes under the Terrorism Act, and then the police do not take action. And this is where things need to change, that people need to be policed in the same way.
Just lastly, do you have sympathy with some of these police officers? Extremely difficult to get things right when it involves foreign conflicts, religious elements, racial elements, very tricky.
Well, it isn't in the sense that this isn't tricky, in the sense there's a government piece of legislation that's saying supporting Hamas and Hezbollah is an offence. You know, there's no sort of debate, oh, it's not time, well, I'm a Roman Catholic, you're a Protestant, so we'll disagree about that. It isn't like that. It is on a piece of paper, this organisation is prescribed, and if you do these things, like support it, wear T-shirts or whatever, that's a crime. These are basic things that the police have to get right, and the briefings, the supervising officers should be the one who are absolutely saying this is what it is.
Well, yeah, strong stuff. Mike Neville, it should be black and white here. It's a prescribed terror organisation. Ergo, if you show support for it, well, firstly, the police should know that it is. That would be a good start. Mike Neville, thank you very much indeed. Former Scotland Yard detective, great to have you on the show.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Plenty more coming up in today's programme, including the very latest on the United States presidential race, as Trump and Harris both made the headlines for, frankly, bizarre reasons.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
True crime is everywhere.
Yeah, next weekend, CrimeCon UK takes place in London. And joining us now to tell us more about that event and the true crime phenomena is former detective Stephen. How do you pronounce your surname? Keogh. Sorry, Stephen.
That's all right.
I should have texted you before.
No worries.
And Nancy, and again, Nancy, what's your surname?
Bourne.
Thank you. I'm showing my ignorance there, but thank you both for joining us. So, Stephen, you're a former top cop. Hope you don't mind me describing you as that. At CrimeCon and other events like that, do you get into sort of the semantics of the investigations and, you know, how... For example, how I was watching something the other night where somebody was unfortunately murdered, but you saw the crime scene investigators trying to work out from which side the person was attacked from. Did the knife come from the left-hand side or the right-hand side? Is it all that kind of stuff?
So for me, everything I've done since I've left the police is about sharing that knowledge of investigations, because if you watch TV, they get it wrong a lot. So what we try and do, I'm not the only police officer there, there's experts, so forensic scientists, psychologists, all from that investigative world, just trying to get across, well, actually, this is how it's really done. This is what we do, not what you're going to see on telly. And I think that's really important. So for me personally, coming along to CrimeCon, I just look at the list of people that are there, honestly, and I'm proud to be associated with them. There are some fascinating people there. People who've really fought for justice for their children. People who are campaigning for victims, for survivors. So it's an event that when you look at the name, you might think, oh, they're just going to sit there talking about serial killers and what they got up to. Couldn't be further than the truth. It's really about what goes on, how it impacts the victims, how the investigations are carried out. It's educational as much as anything.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. 1:25 is the time, and it's just a few weeks to go before Americans head to the polls to elect their new president. Democrat candidate Kamala Harris has been dealt what could be a major blow after she's been accused of plagiarising Martin Luther King in the book that helped launch her political career. Oops.
Yes, the Austrian academic who's made all of these claims also accuses the US Vice President of copying and pasting large swathes of text from none other than Wikipedia, as well as lifting statistics from an Associated Press report without attribution.
Who was it in our government that was accused of this as well? Was it Rachel Reeves?
That was Rachel
Reeves. Yeah, she plagiarised some of her.
Didn't stop her becoming Chancellor.
No, so there you go. Will this make a difference for Kamala? Let's get the thoughts now of Professor in International Studies, David Dunn. David, so what exactly has Kamala Harris been accused of here?
Well, she's been accused of a couple of things. The story from Martin Luther King. And the other more serious aspect is the Wikipedia stuff, or indeed statistics that she's accused of taking from the AP news agents. This can be a serious problem for politicians, and it has ended the career of a politician in Germany, where her PhD was seen to be plagiarized, and that was a proven case of her taking large swathes of text. I think it's different in an academic degree, like a PhD, when the standards are very vigorous and where all references are checked. This is a biography that typically wouldn't have footnotes and therefore wouldn't be expected to be referenced in the same way. And indeed, the quotation or the similarity alleged between Martin Luther King is more coincidence. As an academic, I deal with this sort of thing all the time, trying to work out whether students are plagiarized. And we have software that helps us. And when we're using that, we actually try to work out what could be a normal coincidence, what is a clear lift, and how much of a lift, and whether that's a serious problem or not.
But we've seen some of the comparisons in this case, and I mean, particularly the Wikipedia. I mean, it's word for. I mean, she's swapped around maybe one or two words in an entire paragraph of text that's identical. I mean, that's an open and shut case.
It is. It's whether, of course, it's the ghostwriter rather than her, and it's certainly embarrassing for her. Is it going to make a difference in this presidential race? Almost certainly not.
Although, David, I did want to raise the issue of 1988 and a certain Joseph R. Biden, who was running then to be the Democrat candidate, and he was knocked out of that race over a very similar scandal. He was found to have been plagiarising all sorts of things, including the words of Neil Kinnock, the Labour Party leader at the time. And newsreels played out the videos of Neil Kinnock giving this speech about how he was the first Kinnock in 1,000 generations to go to university. And then there was Joe Biden 2 weeks later. Why am I the first Biden in 1,000 generations to go to university? Identical words.
You're right, and I remember the 1988 case very well. I actually was in Washington working as an intern when he first ran for office, and I was deeply steeped in that case. The difference, I think, is two things. One, that was a TV interview where he actually, as you say, parroted Kinnock's words in a way that was unmistakable. But I think that the fact that it was actually a piece of videotape in those days that was played and replayed made a huge difference, as opposed to a dusty paragraph in a book that essentially long forgotten that Harris wrote in California. And I think the second thing is that actually things have changed. We now have a situation whereby Donald Trump talks about Haitians eating cats and dogs in Ohio, and it makes not a blind but a difference. The standards of what people expect of candidates has changed markedly, and the support for both these candidates is baked in. No matter what they seem to do, however outrageous, doesn't seem to move the dial one iota.
Yeah, it's not great, though, to have people calling you a con artist and a phony all over social media. But as you say, it may not make a difference. But I want to show you Donald Trump at one of his recent town halls. And something rather bizarre happened. Let's have a little watch.
So put on Pavarotti singing Ave Maria. Nice and loud. Turn it up louder. We want a little action here. Turn it up louder.
Now, the context for this is someone fainted in the audience. And,
two people, I think.
Firstly, someone fainted in the audience. He said, play Ave Maria. Let's... and he presumably thinks there's some reviving quality to the music. Then someone else fainted a bit later, and he asked for exactly the same bit of music to be played.
Beautiful.
I mean, David, does Donald Trump think that it has healing qualities, perhaps?
Well, his rallies are becoming more and more bizarre, and they are entertainment. He is an entertainer first and foremost, and that's where how he's got where he has got. But he has a whole range of really eclectic, some would say bizarre, musical tastes that are on display and are played as part of these rallies in the breaks, in the run-up, and as people leave. And so that this is not unexpected. He's trying to make them more interesting, more jazzy. They've been repetitive and slightly dull as this time around compared to 4 years ago when they were more fiery. But I think it's not a mistake and not a coincidence that he chose this particular piece of music. It's a very famous Catholic hymn, and of course he is appealing to Catholic voters. There are 700,000 Polish Americans in Pennsylvania. 500,000 in Wisconsin. He's absolutely appealing to the Latino or Hispanic vote, most of whom are Catholics. So him playing and trying to associate himself with a Catholic hymn is clever and subtle, subliminal, if you like, appeals to Catholic voters. And that's what's going on here, however bizarre it seems to us compared to what we're used to here.
Well, I wouldn't mind listening to that track. It's a lovely piece of music, isn't it? David Dunn, thank you very much indeed, a professor in international studies.
Twice in one rally is a bit much.
Well, it's lovely, though, isn't it?
I'm not sure. If I'd just fainted and I heard that coming, I'd wonder where on earth I was.
What would you prefer? Ruck. It's funny.
I'm not sure I'd want a presidential candidate sort of pointing to me,
bring me back to
asking
life.
for some supernatural revival music. I'm not sure I'd want that sort of attention, really.
Oh, I don't believe that. All eyes on you.
only for positive reasons.
Anyway, up next, we're going to be heading to the Old Bailey for the latest on the Sarah Sharif murder trial. The details of this are truly shocking. But let's get the news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Emily, thank you. The top stories. The Prime Minister and the Health Secretary have both said that new weight loss jabs could help boost the economy in Britain by getting people back into work. Wes Streeting suggested the latest generation of medicines, including Ozempic, could be life-changing for individuals and would ease pressure on the NHS. Experts have warned, though, that in the past, the drug is not a quick fix or replacement for eating well and exercising and should only be offered under medical supervision. Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury James Murray told GB News it's good for the economy.
We want to make sure that people who are not working at the moment for any reasons, but obviously obesity is one of them, we want to support them to get back into work. And these weight loss jabs are just one option for helping people to lose weight. There'll obviously be a discussion between a patient and their doctor to work out the best way for them to lose weight. These weight loss jabs play a role as part of the overall set of interventions that you can make to help people lose weight and to where they can work, get back into work, which is good for them and good for the economy.
Now, a court's been told a neighbour heard a single high-pitched scream of someone in pain 2 days before Sarah Sharif was killed. The 10-year-old was beaten with objects, burnt with an iron and bitten in the weeks before her death. Her body was found in an upstairs bedroom on a bottom bunk bed of her home in Surrey on the 10th of August last year, after her father, Irfan Sharif, called police and confessed to killing her after fleeing to Pakistan. The minicab drivers on trial, along with Sarah's stepmother and uncle, they all deny murder and causing or allowing the death of a child. Foreign Office Minister Annalise Dodds has told the House of Commons she was gravely concerned to hear about attacks on UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon. That's as the UN Secretary-General's condemned the large number of civilian casualties that have taken place in northern Gaza. The UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency claimed 10 people were killed after an Israeli attack on a food supply centre. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees said shells hit inside and outside the centre yesterday morning as people tried to get food handouts. The IDF has said it would review the incident. The UN peacekeeping chief says the UN peacekeepers will stay in all of their positions in Lebanon, despite the calls made by the Israeli authorities to vacate. Israel expanded its target in its war with Hezbollah militants in Lebanon yesterday, killing at least 21 people in an airstrike in the north. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A lot of cloud across the UK today. Damp in places, particularly towards the south and southwest, with heavier rain following on later. What we've got at the moment is a very mild southerly airflow across the country, with frontal systems slowly advancing from the west, but it's actually from the south where we're seeing the cloud build and increasingly spells of rain arriving. Initially the rain will be light and patchy. So it's fairly low cloud covering the hills of the southwest as well as Wales and Northern Ireland. Drizzly conditions here. But towards the north and the east, some brightness, especially for northern Scotland. Wherever you are, it is going to be a mild afternoon. Temperatures up to the high teens in places. However, as we head into the evening, we'll see some heavier and more persistent rain arriving into Devon, Cornwall, Somerset and then South Wales as well. Northern Ireland also seeing those outbreaks of rain move in. But for eastern and northern parts of the UK, it stays mostly dry, although with fairly thick cloud in places. The one exception, Caithness, Sutherland, Orkney, where there will be brighter skies as we end the afternoon and go into the evening. Then overnight, those heavy and persistent spells of rain move up across western and southern parts of the UK. Could cause some issues for Northern Ireland because of the widespread accumulations here, but elsewhere it's on and off rain through the night. The southeast sees some clear spells and the far north of Scotland, but it is a very mild night with temperatures in places staying at 16 or 17 Celsius. Then a grotty start to Wednesday with a lot of cloud. Again, spells of rain moving through Scotland, Northern Ireland, western parts of England and Wales. I think East Anglia and the southeast will see some brightness at times, and it'll be warmest here with temperatures of 20 or 21 Celsius. Mild elsewhere, but that rain sticking around for much of the day.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon. Hello to you. I'm Jules Buckley, Glasgow. Firstly, for this update on the eastbound M8 at the M74 turn-off, that's junction 20. Now, a two-lane stretch there, and one lane's combed off, and a lane shut too, and the exit slip to come off for an earlier vehicle fire. That's being cleared, but is still queuing. Elsewhere, northbound M18 at the Doncaster North services, that's at the turn-off at junction 5. A lane closed on the exit slip there. There's a breakdown that's causing queues as well. Berkshire, the westbound M4 at the turn for Maidenhead, junction 8. Now, we're still seeing some queues on the cameras. It's all due to earlier emergency repairs. All lanes back open, though. And queues anti-clock for the M25 at the Dartford Tunnel. It's due to the earlier breakdown in the left-hand tunnel. All lanes back open, but still slow back to Darren at junction 2. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 38 minutes past 1, and lots of you have been getting in touch on all the topics we've been talking about today.
We were talking about one of Trump's rallies, one of his town halls, where Ave Maria was played out a couple of times when two people fainted in the audience. Eileen says, clearly neither Emily or Tom watched the fabulous American opera singer a week back sing Ave Maria at one of Donald's rallies. He then sung a few patriotic America songs as the crowd left. It was fabulous. Nothing to do with Catholics or hymns. Stop making stuff up. Anne-Marie says, please don't begrudge us a laugh, Eileen.
I mean, the point was, someone fainted. Donald Trump played this music either as a joke or to help revive them. I mean, that's what...
Or just to listen to a nice piece of music.
I don't think... Do you think he just randomly, like, just said he wanted to stop the rally
maybe.
just to listen to the music?
It's just one of his faves, you know, top of his Spotify playlist.
I think he's had a bit of a religious moment after his near-death experience.
It would make sense.
Yeah.
It would make sense. Have you noticed that he's talking about his faith more and God more? I was listening to him on a podcast with a comedian, what's his name, Schultz or something like that. And, yeah, he spoke about that.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of wit, actually. Quite a good interview if you have the chance to watch it. Alistair says we were talking about whether the UK will join some kind of European defence army or cooperate more on those grounds. Lammy seems keen on it. Alistair says the defence industry is one of the major contributors to the UK economy. A consequence of joining the EU Defence Initiative is that we'll be expected to standardise equipment with that used by the EU. So you're suggesting that actually our standards will diminish if we get too involved with the European Union?
I've got some pretty fervent disagreement with my stance on weight loss jabs.
Oh, yes.
Someone calling themselves Humpty Tilsey says, no,
Is that
Tom.
your real name, Humpty?
No, Tom, it's not OK to just have jabs to lose weight. Our bodies are not built to take drugs to suppress appetite. Our bodies aren't built to take drugs to do anything. Our bodies aren't built to have Calpol or aspirin. I mean, our bodies aren't built to have, I don't know, hip operations. I mean, we still do them
You
because
can't be
that's
so
progress.
black and white about these things, though, Tom. It depends on the patient. Some people may have adverse reactions to this type of thing.
I'm not the one being...
It hasn't been around for that long. There could potentially be issues down the line. Some people have said that they felt depressed after taking it because apparently it, impacts the dopamine and things like that.
Humpty's
Other
the
people
one
having digestion issues.
being black and white, saying it's not OK to have jabs to lose weight.
Okay, Humpty's
that's
being
the
just
black
as
and
black
white
and white,
position.
yeah. Humpty is, yeah.
This jab is frankly miraculous for many people. That's a very good thing that we should be celebrating.
But will all those people who take the jab go straight back to work? John thinks, he says, I bet a lot of people will take the job, but it will not fix their mental health, so they will still remain off work and may never have worked in 20 or 30 years. I think that's a good point. I don't think this is going to be a quick fix to our economic woes as a nation. We're not suddenly going to get, the millions of people who aren't working back into work.
Yeah, there's a chicken and egg thing here, isn't there?
There is a bit of a chicken and egg, but do keep your views coming in.
Now, in other news, today the people of Leigh-on-Sea are remembering a long-serving Conservative Member of Parliament, David Amess, Sir David Amess, 3 years on from his tragic death.
Yes, Amess was fatally stabbed during a constituency surgery by an Islamic State terrorist in 2021.
Well, a memorial service has taken place in Lee this morning as the local community continue to commemorate his extraordinary life.
To discuss this further, we're joined by former Conservative MP Sybil Cash. Sybil, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this 3-year anniversary of Sir David Amess's death. A very sad moment. Do you suspect we've learnt the right lessons?
Well, I'm not entirely sure about the lessons, but I do know how deeply I felt and how incredibly tragic it was that he died in the circumstances as you described them. It was simply horrific. And we loved David. He was a very, very solid, good Conservative. He was also a great parliamentarian. And I so well remember I did an interview with him because he was writing a book, and the proceeds of which he was giving to a variety of causes, one of which was prostate cancer. And he asked me if I would take part in a discussion with him, which I did. And I remember we had a wonderful discussion about everything to do with Parliament, which he had loved and was so proud to be a member. And I remember saying to him, well, you've done this book, or you're doing this book, I said, and he said, and I'll be writing many more. And of course, it was only within a matter of weeks after that he was actually murdered. And I never, ever forget that conversation. He was a wonderful man. He really was loved by all sides of the House. He was genuine. He was real. He was a great parliamentarian. And in fact, I was only talking about him yesterday because we had a gathering in the House of Commons, and the subject came back to David again. I mean, he was just a remarkable person. He gave his life to other people, and he has a tremendous sense of public service, and he was completely consistent. He was incredibly principled. And sometimes in these sort of occasions, when you're asked to comment on people, sometimes I watch them and I think, oh, yes, well, but this is absolutely straight from the heart. This was a man of great stature who should never have had the horrendous death that he did, who was a wonderful constituent, who was a wonderful member of Parliament, and to this day we grieve him.
It is remarkable hearing you talk about his book, Sir Bill, because I remember a moving passage from it where he talks about the vitalness of the open democracy we have in the UK, the ability for people to walk up to their MPs, to meet their MPs in person, to have this close relationship. And of course, it is that open surgery where he lost his life.
Absolutely right. And of course, there have been attempts from time to time to close them down, or at any rate to have them monitored, and there was even talk of having police on duty and things like that. But that has never been the tradition, nor is it in the House of Commons itself by and large, although there's been a lot more tighter security recently. But the fact is we have access through our surgeries so people can come and see us. And it's absolutely astonishing how much good comes out of that relationship, where there is real communication, if I say actually by comparison with most other countries, where trying to see a member of Parliament or somebody of that stature is just impossible. Here we have an immediate, down-to-earth, real relationship with people. And I have to say that certainly all my views have been formulated as a result of that. I was an MP for 40 years, from 1984 until the general election. And my strongest feeling about leaving Parliament is not just any withdrawal symptoms, because I have to say I've found I've had a lot to do in the last few weeks with the leadership election, one thing and another. But I also very profoundly feel the loss of my constituents. And David was an absolutely wonderful, perfect example of democracy at its very best. And that's not to exaggerate. I'm not just sort of, giving you a sort of version which suits the occasion. It's absolutely true. If all MPs were like David Amess, this world would be a much better place, and Parliament would be a better place too.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it. Sybil Cash, former Conservative MP.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's just so, whenever you talk to someone who's a friend of Sir David Amess, you just realise how many friends he has, actually across the aisle, his love of animals, his love of this country, just what a thoroughly decent bloke he seemed to be.
But talking about how fantastic, you know, having these open constituency surgeries is all well and good, but we know there is a threat against our politicians and the broader public. We know there is an Islamist terror threat. We were just hearing from the MI5, weren't we, last week, about how that threat is very much still here. How do we keep our politicians safe? How do we keep the public safe? Big questions. Is it about people being nasty to each other on social media?
Definitely
I mean, remember
not.
how that was the conversation.
But I think the point that Bill and so many other people have made is we shouldn't change the way that we live our lives to appease the terror threat.
Yeah. Well, let us know your thoughts on everything. 3 years since Sir David Amess was tragically killed at his constituency surgery. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. We're back in a tick.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good
Morning,
to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with three goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions and looking at how we develop more circular economy programmes. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, you know, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 10 to 2. Now, yesterday, the Chancellor sat down with our political editor, Chris Hope. He asked her specifically on the question of a tax rise that could affect millions of working people, the issue of employers' national insurance. The Chancellor would not rule out raising that tax, and we all know what that means in politician speak. That tax is likely to be raised. So we've dug up a little clip. What did Rachel Reeves, then Shadow Chancellor, have to say about this very tax, employers' national insurance, being raised back in 2021? Take a listen.
Despite all of their election promises to cut national insurance contributions,
They're actually raising them against the strong advice of business and trades unions. The Conservative government's actions will make each new recruit more expensive and increase the costs to business. The decision to saddle employers and workers with the jobs tax takes money out of people's pockets when our economic recovery is not yet established or secure, and only adds to the pressure on businesses.
Jobs tax? Employers? Adds to the costs on businesses? I mean, you could read her own words to her today. This is the tax she is planning to raise.
So this isn't a nasty Tory tax rise. This is a nice, shiny Labour tax rise.
Oh, it's a cuddly tax rise, is it?
It's a nice one, yeah, that we can all get behind.
But this is the extraordinary thing. The Labour manifesto was clear that they did not want to raise tax. They promised to not raise taxes on working people. And yet, 3 years ago, Rachel Reeves said that this is a tax rise on working people. In fact, in 2021, the Office for Budget Responsibility said that for every £1 that is put on employers' national insurance, that takes 80p out of working people's wages. 80% of the incidence of this tax falls on the worker.
Oh, but, you know, we have that financial black hole now that needs filling. Back then, we didn't have that, Tom.
Oh, no one said that there was a black hole before the election. Lots of people said there was a black hole before the election. I mean, there could have been other choices that this government made, but that's by the by. They promised in their manifesto to not raise taxes on working people.
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. It is quite duplicitous. You have to constantly read between the lines. We still await that October budget, and I imagine that will very much be in there.
It will
tax on jobs.
It will be extraordinary if employers' national insurance goes up in that budget. I mean, this will be the most flagrant lie that we've heard politicians make in the election campaign.
But could tackling obesity help reduce unemployment? We'll be tackling that next.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Grey and gloomy for most of us today, and increasingly damp, if not wet, overnight as areas of heavy rain move up from the south. That's where our weather's coming from at the moment. Low pressure to the west, high pressure to the east, and this mild southerly airflow. But that mild wind brings a lot of clouds, so increasingly murky and increasingly wet as bands of heavy rain move up across the south and southwest into Wales, and then through the early hours across northern England, much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, with the far north of Scotland staying clear of that, and the far southeast as well. But wherever you are, it is a mild start to Wednesday. Best of any brightness first thing will be across the far north, so perhaps Orkney, Caithness, Sutherland, but elsewhere across Scotland, extensive cloud cover, outbreaks of rain on and off, some heavier bursts at times. Mostly this is light to moderate. The rain will be more persistent through Cumbria at this stage, North Wales, parts of Northern Ireland. Some issues potentially through the night for Northern Ireland, as well as for Wales and Western England because of the heavy nature of the rain, 50 millimetres or more in a short space of time. Be prepared for some travel disruption first thing, and certainly tricky driving conditions in the west. But further east, actually, we'll see some decent sunny spells developing through London, East Anglia and the southeast. And with the breeze coming up from the south, temperatures could reach 20 to 22 Celsius. Further west, it's mild, yes, but it's gloomy, and those outbreaks of rain are continuing throughout much of the day. They'll be on and off, but they will be heavy at times. Certainly a soggy end of the day for much of Western England and Wales, Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. Eventually that system does clear through. Brighter skies follow for Thursday with 1 or 2 showers, and it's also going to feel a little fresher as temperatures start to dip away.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's only 2 weeks remaining to grab your chance to win a whopping £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. That's like having £3,000 each month for an entire year. Extra cash in your bank account that you can do whatever you like with. Take a year off and keep it to yourself. You don't even need to tell the taxman, as it's totally tax-free. For another chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB08, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 25th of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Tuesday, the 15th of October. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Jabs for jobs. New plans to inject out-of-work couch potatoes with fat jabs are being considered by the Health Secretary, all to get Britain back to work. Is the way to get people off the sofa and back to the grind the fat jab?
And a terrorist blind spot, it seems. 2 police officers have been caught out refusing to accept Hezbollah is a terrorist organisation, calling the law a matter of opinion. Why aren't the police enforcing the law on our streets, and do they even understand the law?
The EU has made an offer to Lamy. Yes, the Foreign Secretary has returned from his Brussels trip with an offer that the UK signs up to EU-controlled military peacekeeping missions, all in return for better relations. Is that a good deal for Britain?
And it's been revealed that Taylor Swift's mum negotiated her VIP security directly with Starmer's former Chief of Staff, Sue Gray. And according to reports, even the Attorney General was brought in to persuade the police to breach their usual protocols. Why was there so much effort for one billionaire pop star? Yes, why was there so much effort for one billionaire pop star? Does this smack of corruption to you?
I think there are 3 possible explanations.
3? OK, go on quickly.
Number 1, they really wanted free tickets.
OK, number 1, yeah.
Number 2, they didn't want Taylor Swift to cancel a tour that could have brought billions to the UK economy.
OK,
millions.
Financial aspect.
Or number 3, They're absolutely hopeless at their jobs, didn't know what we're doing and cracked at the first sign of pressure.
I think it might be number 3, to be honest. I don't think they'd do all that just for a free ticket to a concert. I mean, really? I mean, maybe, but it seems doubtful. I think that probably the incompetence was the matter here. They hadn't thought through what precedent this sets. So this is a security that's usually for royals. Harry's not getting his, Prince Harry, that is. Or heads of states from foreign countries. Or Taylor Swift, it seems. So what happens if another pop star, what happens if Beyoncé fancies a VVIP security detail when she comes to this country? What if, I can't think of any other pop stars?
Harry Styles.
What if Harry Styles wants it? Yeah, Harry Styles? What's wrong with him? Doesn't he deserve the special treatment?
Chapel Roan was in London a couple of weeks ago.
And what does this mean for the
relationship? Brixton.
What does this mean between the... What does this mean for the relationship between the police and the government? I mean, can the government just tell the police exactly what to do and when, even if it goes against all of their long-standing principles, protocols, the way of doing things that they've done for years?
Do you think Sabrina Carpenter would get it if she said, please, please, please?
Please, please, please.
I don't know how many people will get that joke.
Sabrina Carpenter, she's a little tiny pop star with blonde hair. Who actually did the bit before Taylor Swift comes on stage a few years ago.
She's got a song, Please, Please, Please. I wonder if it would work. Anyway, Ed Miliband, apparently a big fan of Chapel Roan.
We're being told to get to the news. We're wittering on. We're wittering on. Anyway, get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. Are you concerned about these moves towards an EU army as well? Would we actually get involved in such a thing? Let us know. But it's the headlines with Tatiana.
Tom, Emily, thank you very much. The top stories this hour. The Prime Minister and the Health Secretary have both said that new weight loss jabs could help boost the economy in Britain by getting people back into work. Wes Streeting suggested the latest generation of medicines, including Ozempic, could be life-changing for individuals and would ease pressure on the NHS. Experts have warned in the past that the drug is not a quick fix or a replacement for eating well and exercising and should only be offered under medical supervision. Members of the public in Nottingham have been speaking to GB News about their opinions on weight loss jabs.
I don't think it's fair. No, I think the money could be spent better elsewhere.
I think it's a bit insulting, and also I don't think it's a good idea. You need to lose it naturally. Do some exercise.
It saves on the money that we spend out for health and everything. So, yeah, I think it's a very good idea.
Mixed feelings. I think if it's going to save a life, then yes, it's worth it. If it's going to save GP time, nurses' time, yes, it's worth it. But if it's not, education is still the best thing.
Now, the government is unlikely to back plans aimed at stopping children from overusing their mobile phones in school, as Number 10 has signalled that head teachers can already ban phones from schools at their own discretion. Labour MP Josh McAllister is expected to introduce a private member's bill in Parliament tomorrow, aimed at protecting children from harms caused by excessive screen time. According to McAllister, the equivalent of seatbelt legislation is needed to help them manage addictive content for children. He says children who are doom-scrolling for hours a day on smartphones are at risk of widespread harm. Now, the bill will also call for the age at which companies can get data consent from children without parental permission to be raised from 13 to 16. A court's been told a neighbour heard a single high-pitched scream of someone in pain 2 days before Sarah Sharif was killed. The 10-year-old was beaten with objects, burnt with an iron and bitten in the weeks before her death. Her body was found in an upstairs bedroom on a bottom bunk bed of her home in Surrey on the 10th of August last year, after her father Irfan Sharif called police and confessed to killing her after fleeing to Pakistan. The minicab driver's on trial, along with Sarah's stepmother and uncle. They all deny murder and causing or allowing the death of a child. The police officer who shot Chris Carber has told the Old Bailey he did not intend to kill him when he opened fire. 40-year-old Martin Blake told jurors that he intended only to stop the car the 24-year-old was driving in and aimed for the centre of his body. Mr Carber was shot in the head while driving an Audi in Streatham, South East London, in September 2022 and died in hospital the next day. Mr Blake, a marksman for the Metropolitan Police, is accused of murder, which he denies. The mother of Salisbury poisonings victim Dawn Sturgis has said her family found comfort that she was the only person to be killed by the Russian nerve agent Novichok when the potential harm was much, much more. The inquiry's been told it was pure chance that Dawn sprayed herself with the substance before meeting up with her daughter. Dawn's mother, Caroline Sturgis, says Dawn had plans to meet her daughter before she discovered the perfume bottle containing Novichok, and said it was a solace to her family that Dawn's daughter was not also killed in the incident. 44-year-old Dawn died after applying the nerve agent to her skin in July 2018. And it came after the attempted murders of former spy Sergei Skripal, his daughter Yulia, and then police officer Nick Bailey, who were poisoned in Salisbury in March that year. Some breaking news this hour. A murder investigation has been launched after a man in his 40s was shot dead in North London. Police were called to Walthoff Gardens in Tottenham at 9 o'clock this morning following reports of a shooting. Officers found a man with a gunshot wound, and despite efforts by emergency services, he died at the scene. No arrests have been made so far. Elsewhere, Foreign Office Minister Annalise Dodds has told the Commons she was gravely concerned to hear about attacks on UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon. That's as the UN Secretary-General has condemned the large number of civilian casualties that have taken place in northern Gaza. The UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency claimed 10 people were killed after an Israeli attack on a food supply centre. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees said shells hit inside and outside the centre yesterday morning as people tried to get food handouts. The IDF has said it would review the incident. The UN peacekeeping chief has said that the UN peacekeepers will stay in all of their positions in Lebanon despite the calls made by the Israeli authorities to vacate those positions that are in the vicinity of the blue line between Lebanon and Israel. Israel expanded its targets in its war with Hezbollah militants in Lebanon yesterday, killing at least 21 people in an airstrike in the north. And Sean Diddy Combs has been hit by a new batch of lawsuits accusing him of sexual assault against 6 people, including a 16-year-old boy. The new wave of lawsuits, filed yesterday, accuses Combs, also known as P. Diddy or Puff Daddy, of raping women, sexually assaulting men and molesting the boy. At least 6 lawsuits were filed against the hip-hop mogul in a federal court in New York City. All were filed anonymously. More than 100 alleged victims have now been believed to be in the process of taking legal action against Combs in the wake of his sex trafficking arrest last month. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
Right, good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 2. And could you get a free fat jab if you happen to be unemployed? Well, and overweight. Overweight jobless Brits could be given free weight loss medicine to help them get back to work.
Yes, obesity illness costs the economy an astonishing £74 billion a year, according to the Health Secretary. Wes Streeting hopes the injections will reduce costs and boost the economy. But is he right?
Well, lucky for you, we've spoken to the people of Arnold on the outskirts of Nottingham to see what they think of the government's plans.
Do some exercise, watch your diet, rather than have the government fork out a load of money again.
Well, I think they're being a bit rude, actually. I don't think it'd be a total answer to get people working again.
Well, I'm sorry, but I think if you need to lose weight, go on a diet and do some exercise. No, that's an easy way out.
Oh, she's taking no prisoners, that one.
I mean, she is right. It's just these jabs help you.
Help you a lot?
Eat less. Yeah.
But is Wes Streeting right? Could weight loss jabs boost the economy in one way or another? Well, we're joined by Head of Lifestyle Economics at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Christopher Snowden. Christopher, now, I understand that you are sceptical that this will save the Treasury money. Why?
Well, because the figure Tom's has given, £74 billion, is fiction. I mean, most of that, these are very wide societal intangible costs. So a very, very large part, in fact, most of it comes down to lost productivity, not from people being unemployed, but from people being dead, which is not really a cost to the NHS or to anybody else. So, look, I mean, there are benefits to losing weight, undoubtedly, but they're mostly bestowed on the individual. You feel better, you can maybe earn more money, you can maybe get a job possibly. But I think the government seems to be exaggerating the extent to which unemployment is caused by obesity. The rise in long-term sick has got really nothing to do with obesity. It's all down to supposed mental health problems, but at core is actually due to the last government messing up the benefit system. So people are perversely incentivized to claim long-term sickness benefit when they should be on short-term sickness.
I've got one study here that says there's a huge, considerable link between not turning up for work and being fat or obese. I mean, so people maybe are taking more sick days. That's costing the economy in terms of productivity and in terms of economic growth, potentially.
Yeah, Wes Streeting says that obese people take 4 more days off sick than people who are not obese. That doesn't seem to me a terribly large figure. In fact, it's smaller than the difference between absenteeism in the public sector and the private sector. So look, I'm not saying there's no economic consequences. I'm not saying that there's nobody out there who's so fat that they physically cannot get a job and would desperately like to work. And hopefully Wes Streeting finds these people and gives them the jabs, because the jabs do work. And this is the good news story here. The jabs are the only thing that actually does reduce obesity rates. All the other stuff that's being tried, the sugar taxes and the ad bans and so on, is completely useless. Streeting is still apparently going to do these things anyway, but we have got something here that actually does reduce obesity. It seems to have already reduced obesity rates at a population level in the United States. So I'm not against this trial, and it is a trial. It's important to remember he's not just dishing this out willy-nilly. He is going to find people, particularly I think in Greater Manchester, and there are people who are unemployed primarily, and he's going to do a robust evaluation, hopefully. So I think it's worth a go, but I think ultimately these fictitious figures of £74 billion costs to society, the NHS, whatever it may be, they're going to come head on with the very real out-of-pocket costs that the NHS is going to have to take on the chin. Because if you're going to put everybody who's obese in this country on these drugs, it's going to cost you, by my reckoning, about £16 billion a year.
OK, but Christopher, what if we did a quid pro quo here and we got rid of all of the economy-depressing ad bans and restrictions and all the government impositions on how businesses can sell their products, and we sort of had a much freer economy when it came to what people could sell, even if it's unhealthy food, and we gave a lot of people these fat jabs. I mean, how does the economics work out on that one?
Well, we can get rid of all those policies anyway, because they're not doing any good. They just incur various costs and, closing down fish and chip shops and so on. These are bad things for the economy. So you can get rid of all the nanny state stuff anyway, because it's completely ineffective and counterproductive. The only question is, as you've asked people out there on the street, is it fair, is it reasonable, is it effective to dish out these drugs, which are still quite expensive and will be until they go off patent in the 2030s. And I think that's something actually that lends itself to empirical research. So I think good on the government in a way for doing a proper test. But ultimately, I don't think they're going to see that much of an economic benefit from this. And so I think they're going to have to accept eventually that actually this is actually putting a further cost on the NHS, and it's good for people's health, and it's good that these people feel better for not being obese anymore, but actually it's not getting a huge number of people back to work, it's not creating a huge amount of tax revenue, and it's not reducing the benefit bill by very much.
Also it's a bit unfair if the unemployed get them free, and if you happen to have a job, you have to pay for it. I mean, that's a bit tough. Anyway, Christopher, we'll have to end it there. Christopher Snowdon from the Institute of Economic Affairs, head of Lifestyle Economics.
It is fascinating. He references the US obesity rate, and I've seen this graph. Basically, since the war, it was going up and 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 up. You get to about 2022, 2023, and it just goes whoop. And it's just started this massive decline for the first time in all of our lifetimes, really.
That's pretty cool.
That Americans are getting less fat.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, because, the United States, people are known for being, enormous. In some parts of the country, anyway.
Big buildings, big cars, big people.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to turn our attention to something quite different, because today is day 2 of Sarah Sharif's murder trial, and the court has been told how the 10-year-old's father, who stands accused of her murder, told police, "I've killed my daughter," in his 999 call.
Well, GB News national reporter Charlie Peters is at the Old Bailey for us with the very latest.
Bailey, the court heard about a campaign of abuse endured by 10-year-old Sarah Sharif. They said that the child had been found with scalding, with broken bones and with bite marks when she was discovered dead at an address in Woking in Surrey in August of last year. Well, today the prosecution added to those injuries and the description of what they said 10-year-old Sarah endured in the months and years leading up to her death. They said yesterday that her father had phoned from Pakistan the day after she was found dead, phoning up 999 and saying that he had killed her after he had, quote, legally punished her. Well, more disturbing injuries and details were revealed this morning, with the prosecution saying that plastic bags and tape were found around the property in Woking. They said, describing them as hoods that Sarah Sharif was forced to wear. They alleged that Baynash Batul, her stepmother, allegedly bought 18 rolls of parcel tape online in the days before she was found dead. The police said that strange-looking objects were found in wheelie bins in the days after they recovered her body. They described them as plastic bags wrapped up in parcel tape. But the lead prosecutor here, the barrister, said that it was obvious what these items were. They said they were homemade hoods placed over the 10-year-old's head and secured with tape. The trial heard that fingerprints belonging to the 10-year-old's father were found on some of those plastic bags and also on the non-adhesive side of the sticky tape used, they say, to secure them in place. And it wasn't just plastic bags that they said 10-year-old Sarah Sharif was forced to wear to cover her head, but also a hijab. The prosecution said that it was in January 2023 that she first started wearing a hijab to school. She was the only one in her household to wear one. The prosecutor said that the fact that she began to wear the hijab around this time is indicative, they say, of an attempt to conceal injuries she endured to her face. They pointed to bruises under her eye, bruises on her chin, bruises that her teachers found at school. They described how she had acted coyly when they raised those injuries with the child who was later found dead at that address in Woking. Now, her father, Irfan Sharif, aged 42, is standing trial before Mr. Justice Kavanagh, alongside the stepmother, Baynash Batul, and also her uncle, Fazl Malik, aged 29. All three deny murder.
Thank you very much, Charlie Peters there outside the Old Bailey. Excruciating to listen to some of those details. Yeah. Hideous campaign of abuse. Yeah, totally inhuman.
Well, Metropolitan Police officers are facing criticism in other news for acknowledging Hezbollah, for refusing to acknowledge Hezbollah as a terrorist organisation during a pro-Palestinian protest in London. In a now viral video, officers told a spectator that Hezbollah's status was a matter of opinion.
It's a vigil. For the death of the leader of Lebanon.
Right. Leader of Lebanon or leader of Hezbollah?
Hezbollah, that's it.
That's
right. I'm not
Hezbollah.
Sorry, I don't take a lot of political interest because I'm not allowed to. But yeah, Hezbollah.
So they were mourning leader of terrorist organizations.
Your opinion is up to you.
Well, Hezbollah is legally a terrorist organization.
Again, so your opinion is your opinion.
No, it's not my opinion. It's the opinion of the government.
Okay, well, we're not allowed to take opinions. Yeah.
OK, so is that just ignorance from those police officers or something more sinister? The Met Police has said in response the prescribed status of Hezbollah, Hamas and other groups is included in the briefings given to officers deployed to police-related events. But we recognise this video shows we need to do more to make sure the details of those briefings are fully understood.
Let's cross over to the former Detective Chief Superintendent of the Met Police, Kevin Hurley. Kevin, what on earth went wrong here?
You had it right there, ignorant. Two police officers, both young, don't take much interest in politics. They didn't pay attention at the briefing. They were sat in the briefing, probably 30, 40, 50 officers, not particularly paying attention. So gone out on the streets, badly briefed, unprofessional by them both. But you have to be realistic about what's happened to our police over the years. The skill base has been really badly denuded. They're much younger than they once were, much less experienced, much less of an understanding of how they fit into their role in society. And I just think this is an unfortunate example of what we get now. You pay for what you get. If you don't pay the money, the pay's down 20, 25% on what it once was. huge recruitment drive to bring loads of people in. That's what you get. They're not politically aware. They don't pay attention to the briefing. They couldn't really care less. They've probably been moved up to town from a suburb to provide some support up there for public order work. Don't really know half the time what they're up there for. Quite normal. They should really pay more attention at the briefing, and probably the people giving the briefing should have tested understanding by asking questions. So there's some learning there for Metropolitan Police briefing processes and for individual officers, should they wish to make sure they understand why they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I should say a lot of people getting in touch asking why this vigil for a now dead leader of a prescribed terrorist organisation in this country was allowed to go ahead in central London.
Well, it's going to have been a judgment call by the police commanders on the ground as to whether or not they thought it was worth pushing the point or risking the public order issues, and it then opens up that whole point again about is there two-tier policing and so on in the country, when the balance is drawn as to do we want to risk more disorder, do we want more problems, shall we semi-ignore it or just let it pass off? I mean, that's the complexities now of trying to police such a diverse society that we have, particularly in London, where we end up with world politics being played out in the streets of London by people who come from these different places, and then the Metropolitan Police or other police forces expected to pick themselves way, that minefield, which for the people who are turning up is extremely emotive, although for those two cops clearly not, or they would have taken more interest. But that's the challenges of public order policing.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Very easy
From Lebanon to Kashmir, it seems like we need our police officers today to be geopolitical experts as well as just bobbies on the beat. Kevin, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us. Kevin Hurley, former Detective Chief Superintendent at the Met.
All they needed to know was that Hezbollah was a prescribed terrorist organisation in this country. They don't need to know about the global politics and everything that goes with it, in my opinion. Anyway, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up, including how the European Union is pushing now for the UK to join its future peacekeeping missions. Is this a step towards an EU army, and would we join?
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
We shot with the London Eye in the background, so it's quite an iconic shoot to do my cover of the Playboy magazine.
And you moved into the mansion for a while. Hugh called you the British Carmen Electra. You were one of his favourites, and it's renowned for its parties, of course. So you must have had a few of those. Must have been wild times.
Fantastic parties, yeah. I mean, I met some incredible people. I will forever respect him and everyone at Playboy for the love and the support.
And you were on giant billboards, you were modelling for Nike, for Reebok, you're earning thousands of pounds a day.
Wow.
Absolutely like living the dream in terms of a model's lifestyle, and then things began to change.
Well, I've been living in Windsor for 4 years, and I can't get back into Windsor at the moment. The rents have gone ridiculous. I was paying $550 a month, and then the landlord just turned around one day and said I need to be paying $750. And I didn't really have a proper tenancy agreement, and I looked through it and I said, oh, can we get something in writing? And he was like, oh. So in the end, I wrote a tenancy agreement out from off the internet and I got it all signed. But then he went, if you're not going to pay the extra £250 a month, then you're going to have to move out. And I was like, well, you're going to have to give me 4 weeks. I can't just move out. I've got nowhere to go. And I think he thought he could just throw me out there and then. And he said, I've got someone that's going to move in that's going to pay £700-800 a month. So I went and got the tent, and I thought maybe this will be the way I can go for a few months or so, you know. And it was still summer a few months back when I became homeless. So, you know, I got the tent and I got all the cooking equipment and what have you from the money I got from some of the jobs I did. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go and be a free spirit for a bit, and I'm gonna have to just do my own thing. And you know what, it was the biggest mental relief to be able to have my own space. I mean, that was so liberating, absolutely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 2:27. Now, could Britain join a European army? Well, EU countries are urging the UK to participate in Brussels-led peacekeeping missions.
Several European ministers used a meeting with the Foreign Secretary David Lammy to call for Britain to take part in the Union's, that is the EU's, security and defence missions.
Yes, this all comes as Sir Keir Starmer vows to reset our ties, reset our relationship with Europe. So could that include defence?
Well, Peter Klepp is the editor-in-chief of the Brussels Report, and he joins us now. Peter, thanks for joining us. This is a fairly interesting move. It was fairly extraordinary for David Lammy to be at this meeting, despite Brexit. And now there's this offer.
Well, the United Kingdom is, of course, a major player in security affairs. So that's why European governments are very keen to keep Britain close despite Brexit on this front. And then I think that's absolutely right. Now, the thing is, we do have NATO, and we should recall the words of... Sorry?
So I think there's a bit of delay on the line.
Listen to the words of... okay. I think we should recall the words of Jens Stoltenberg, the outgoing NATO Secretary General. And during his farewell speech this year, he warned that European Union initiatives for defense may well undermine NATO. They may deprive NATO of precious resources that they need. So I think the UK should be very careful not to join into certain projects that ultimately undermine NATO.
So that's very interesting. You don't believe that this would be in our best interest to actually go ahead with more cooperation with these types of missions, as it might undermine NATO. I think a lot of people in this country who backed Brexit would be concerned that this is just a step back towards the United Kingdom almost becoming a part of the European Union again, becoming a member state through the back door. We're getting closer and closer and closer.
Well, that's definitely also a risk. But even more than that, I do think that apart from Britain not taking part in this, also European countries should end this aspect of the EU. I don't think the EU should have any role in security policy whatsoever. It duplicates NATO, it undermines NATO. You have the confusing situation that neutral countries like Ireland, but also Austria are involved in the EU, but not in NATO. Also, the EU has no credibility whatsoever when it comes to foreign policy, which is, of course, closely linked to defense. Only this week, Xavier Bettel, who's the foreign minister of Luxembourg, the former prime minister, he said that nobody really cares about the opinion of the EU when it comes to the Middle East. So I think that should tell you everything you need to know.
And yet, Peter, isn't this all a consequence, or perhaps has been exacerbated, by the American stance towards NATO? You've got, in Donald Trump, a potential president who's very ambiguous towards the doctrine of collective defence. Isn't it inevitable if America is not going to live up to its NATO treaty obligations, or at least is being equivocal about that, isn't it inevitable that the EU will try and duplicate it, replicate it?
Well, I think opinions are divided about that subject. I believe that Trump does support NATO, but that he wants all NATO member states to take their responsibilities serious. And I think he's absolutely right in this, and he's not different in his opinions to previous American presidents. So indeed, if European countries don't take NATO serious, at one point the United States or Trumpists over there may well say, well, you have your European army now, so I think you can do without us. And that would, of course, be terrible for the security of Europe.
Well, thank you very much indeed for your time. Peter Klepp, Editor-in-Chief of the Brussels Report. Thank you. I don't think, the EU would want to get their hands dirty when it comes to things. I think, peacekeeping missions, one thing, but actually, full-on military expeditions, I don't think so.
Well, I think it's also just a recipe there to sort of break up the world. I mean, the EU likes to talk about internationalism and unity and all the rest of it, but actually all it is casting the Americans adrift, being much more insular as a European continent and losing our friends, well, our AUKUS friends, for example, Australia, Canada, the United States of America.
Yeah, little Europeans. Anyway, up next, we tackle the ongoing outrage at the criminal justice system because 30 known paedophiles have managed to avoid serving prison time in just the last 2 weeks. It's your news headlines with Tatiana.
Emily, thank you very much. The top stories. The Prime Minister and the Health Secretary have said new weight loss jabs could help boost the economy in Britain by getting people back into work. Wes Streeting suggested the latest generation of medicines, including Ozempic, could be life-changing for individuals and would ease pressure on the NHS. Experts have warned in the past that the drug is not a quick fix or a replacement for eating well and exercising and should only be offered under medical supervision. Members of the public in Nottingham have spoken to GB News about their mixed opinions on weight loss jabs.
I don't think it's fair. No, I think the money could be spent better elsewhere.
I think it's a bit insulting, and also I don't think it's a good idea. You need to lose it naturally. Do some exercise.
It saves on the money that we spend out for health and everything. So, yeah, I think it's a very good idea.
Mixed feelings. I think if it's going to save a life, then yes, it's worth it. If it's going to save GP time, nurses' time, yes, it's worth it. But if it's not, education is still the best thing.
The government is unlikely to back plans aimed at stopping children from overusing their mobile phones in school, as Number 10 has signalled that head teachers can already ban phones from schools at their own discretion. Labour MP Josh McAllister is expected to introduce a private member's bill in Parliament tomorrow aimed at protecting children from harms caused by excessive screen time. According to McAllister, the equivalent of seatbelt legislation is needed to help them manage addictive content for children. He says children who are doom-scrolling for hours a day on smartphones are at risk of widespread harm. Now, the bill will also call for the age at which companies can get data consent from children without parental permission to be raised from 13 to 16. And the police officer who shot Chris Carber has told the Old Bailey he did not intend to kill him when he opened fire. 40-year-old Martin Blake told jurors that he intended only to stop the car the 24-year-old was driving in and aimed for the centre of his body. Mr Carber was shot in the head while driving an Audi in Streatham in south-east London in September 2022 and died in hospital the following day. Mr Blake, a marksman for the Metropolitan Police, is accused of murder, which he denies. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. Lewis Mackenzie will have your headlines in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A lot of cloud across the UK today. Damp in places, particularly towards the south and southwest, with heavier rain following on later. What we've got at the moment is a very mild southerly airflow across the country, with frontal systems slowly advancing from the west, but it's actually from the south where we're seeing the cloud build and increasingly spells of rain arriving. Initially the rain will be light and patchy. So it's fairly low cloud covering the hills of the southwest as well as Wales and Northern Ireland. Drizzly conditions here, but towards the north and the east, some brightness, especially for northern Scotland. Wherever you are, it is going to be a mild afternoon. Temperatures up to the high teens in places. However, as we head into the evening, we'll see some heavier and more persistent rain arriving into Devon, Cornwall, Somerset and then South Wales as well. Northern Ireland also seeing those outbreaks of rain move in. But for eastern and northern parts of the UK, it stays mostly dry, although with fairly thick cloud in places. The one exception, Caithness, Sutherland, Orkney, where there will be brighter skies as we end the afternoon and go into the evening. Then overnight, those heavy and persistent spells of rain move up across western and southern parts of the UK. Could cause some issues for Northern Ireland because of the widespread accumulations here, but elsewhere it's on and off rain through the night. The southeast sees some clear spells and the far north of Scotland, but it is a very mild night with temperatures in places staying at 16 or 17 Celsius. Then a grotty start to Wednesday with a lot of cloud. Again, spells of rain moving through Scotland, Northern Ireland, western parts of England and Wales. I think East Anglia and the southeast will see some brightness at times, and it'll be warmest here with temperatures of 20 or 21 Celsius. Mild elsewhere, but that rain sticking around for much of the day.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, hello to you, I'm Jules Buckley. The southbound M6 at the Lim interchange, that's junction 20, the turn off for the M56. Now the exit slip road there to the eastbound M56 has been closed off as a collision continues to cause delays at this lunchtime. Issues for the northbound M1 just after Lutterworth at junction 20. Now on the main carriageway on the 3-lane stretch, 2 lanes are out. There's an overturned vehicle and an oil spillage, so that's queuing. Also the northbound entry slip at junction 20 is closed off as well, adding to delays. And if you're heading west towards Plymouth this lunchtime, the Lara Bridge Road, that's the westbound side of the A374. Now that's been closed between the car dealership and the Elliott Road junction. There's an oil spillage there, so it's closed westbound and queuing. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's that time of the show where we speak to Martin and see what's coming up on his show at 3 o'clock. Martin, thank you very much indeed. Tell us what's coming up then.
Well, good afternoon to you. On my show today, 3 years ago, of course, today, David Amos was viciously stabbed to death by an Islamist terrorist at his political surgery. Today, just 22 miles away on the other side of the channel, an Afghan illegal wants to come to Britain after issuing a chilling death threat to Reform Party leader Nigel Farage. Have we learned nothing? When will we ever stamp out this threat? And how on earth could it be a situation where an illegal immigrant could come to Britain having issued a death threat against a standing parliamentarian and he would become our responsibility? We'd be unable to deport him because he's an Afghan. And guess what? His human rights would trump the human rights of Nigel Farage's and of every Briton. I'll be joined in the studio by Lee Anderson himself, who's been subjected to numerous death threats, and he'll have a few choice words about what should be done to these perpetrators. I'll also speak to Anne Widdicombe later in the show, who is a close personal friend of Mr. Amos, for her reflections on this special day. Meanwhile, in Brussels, David Lammy is cozying up to the EU, playing tin soldiers. As nobody told him, we left the EU in 2019, and there's no more chance of us having an EU army than there is me flying to the moon. And also, fat jabs for jobs. I tell you what, stop feeding them free jabs and stop feeding them cake and stop feeding them benefits. Why should I pay my taxes for those people to get free jabs? Get off your backsides and get to work. That's coming 3 till 6.
Oh, goodness me.
Stop eating your donuts, stop stuffing your face with cake, forget that full-fat Coke and just get back to work. There you go.
Well, that's us told.
Exactly.
Thanks, Martin. We'll see you at 3 o'clock.
Right, OK, well, we're going to turn our attention to something rather serious, actually. It's another shocking story. 30 convicted paedophiles caught with severe child abuse images have managed to avoid prison just over the past 2 weeks. 30 in 2 weeks.
Well, campaigners are now demanding harsher sentences for those involved in child exploitation. But is anyone listening?
Well, joining us now is Conservative MP for Meriden and Solihull East, Saqib Bhatti. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I know you feel very strongly about this issue. I don't understand, and I think quite a lot of our viewers won't understand, why, if it is a crime to be accessing, viewing and creating this type of imagery, why there are so many convicted paedophiles getting away with what appears to be a slap on the wrist.
Well, look, I mean, you're right. I feel very strongly about this, and I pay tribute to the campaigners on this issue because clearly they're incredibly brave for having experienced what they've quite often it's something they've personally experienced, and then they're stepping up to say we need tougher sentencing. And in many cases, the cases that have been publicised over the last 24 hours, these are individuals with Category A material, thousands and thousands of these, and they've been given community orders. They've been walking free effectively and having suspended sentences. And look, I've made a career move never to criticise the judiciary, but I do think there is a space here for government now to change the regulations on this. I think the Justice Secretary is looking at what punishments are meted out, and clearly in this sphere, this needs to be tougher because effectively, by allowing this under the government's watch, they've decriminalised this offence.
There is a big difficulty here, because obviously we know that the prisons are full to bursting, and we also know that there is guidance when it comes to short prison sentences. If someone's going to be locked up for just 6 months or a year, I think anything under 2 years, there doesn't seem to be that much correctional utility to such a short prison sentence. In fact, when people are sent to prison for a short period of time, for example, under a year, they tend to make more criminal connections behind bars and come out and reoffend.
Well, Tom, I think you raise a really important point about the state of the prison system and the environment that they're in. But I think we have to take one step back. For the victims who've suffered this abuse, who have had these images that are then redistributed, every time it is redistributed, you're effectively re-victimizing those individuals. And I think there is a big issue in the law where actually I think the guidance does need to be strengthened. I'm a father of 2 kids, and I can tell you I feel very strongly about it. And I don't think I'm unique in that. I think my voters, my community, my constituents, they feel as strongly about individuals who are basically the lowest of the low who are engaging in this heinous act.
Yeah, I mean, the Sun newspaper has highlighted these 30 cases. I'm just reading here, a 53-year-old man from Romford, East London, found with 2,118 Category A images. He got 10 months, but again, suspended for 18 months, ordered to do 100 hours of unpaid work. I mean, is that enough of a deterrent to stop people from viewing this type of content? Another one, a bus driver, 21 years old from Oxfordshire, found with 48 Category A images, including one showing the rape of a girl aged between 5 and 7, with these suspended sentences.
And look, it gives me goosebumps just hearing you say those things and thinking about what these individuals are engaging in. The fact of the matter is, some of the reasoning for these sentences as well. It's good character was used in one case. It was, one individual said, I now realise that they're children. I mean, the victims deserve justice, and justice only really matters and counts when it is proportionate to the crime. And I think we have to recognise as parliamentarians that every time this images are reused or redistributed, it is re-victimising, it is re-perpetrating that crime. And I think the sentencing has to reflect that. And look, Tom, you raised the point about prison capacity. When the prison spaces were needed, they were found. We took decisions in government where prisons are coming online. Those things are happening. Look, I'm not saying it's an easy decision, but clearly these are crimes that deserve proportionate responses. And I think that's what I felt very strongly about.
It's a strong case you make, Saqib. Thank you so much for coming on and talking us through it. Conservative Member of Parliament for Meriden and Solihull East.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful campaign from the Sun newspaper. I mean, I think people would be quite shocked to hear that so many people are getting away with suspended jail sentences, a few hours of unpaid work for images that show, rape of very young children. I mean, quite incredible.
Yeah, it does. It begs the question about what actually prison is for, what retribution is for, and is reform possible in some of these areas?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if these terms come with, mandatory therapy and that sort of thing, some kind of rehabilitation exercise. I don't know. I know Hugh Edwards got rehabilitation, didn't he? And his some kind of commitment to several hours or whatever it is. Is that enough? Is that enough? I mean, we wouldn't, we wouldn't, if there wasn't demand for these types of images, these people viewing, then it wouldn't happen, would it? Anyway, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Stay with us. We're going to look into the very latest details of this Taylor Swift Met Police scandal, as reports suggest Scotland Yard asked for legal advice to defend her police escort. That's next.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Right, up and down the country, many parents are preparing or have indeed already sent their child off to university.
Indeed, but sometimes it can leave parents struggling to cope with the, quote, empty nest syndrome their child leaves behind. So joining us now to discuss how to cope with sending off your sprogs to university, or not so sprogs, is broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy. Nice to see you this early. This is a real thing, isn't it? It's our colleague Paul Coitz, our sports expert, describes it as grief, sending your young adults off to uni and leaving the nest for the first time.
Yes, I think grief is the right word because it's an ending. And it's not just an ending with your relationship with your child. It changes from here on in. But it also is very much about your identity. Your identity as a parent is weakening. You'll always be that child's parent, but you're not going to have the same involvement on a daily basis. And so you're left to think, OK, well, what does my life look like going forward? What's my relationship? If you're in a relationship with a partner, how is that going to change? And like all elements of grief, there's going to be a bit of a process. There's going to be that transition period where you adjust to your new life, just as your sprogs, as you call them, are adjusting to their new, exciting phase of their life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top two for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, on Thursday as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. this Thursday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Coming up to 10 to 3. Now, Scotland Yard were convinced by the Attorney-General to award Taylor Swift a taxpayer-funded blue light escort amid fears of being held liable for security breaches. That's according to new reports out this morning.
And we also hear that Taylor Swift's mother met with Sue Gray, the former Chief of Staff to Keir Starmer, threatening to cancel all London shows if the police escort usually reserved for royals, heads of state, was not provided.
Well, this comes as it was revealed the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, who attended one of the shows for free, was also involved in these discussions.
So who wasn't involved in these discussions? Well, for more on this, we're joined by former Special Advisor Henry Newman. And Henry, I think people will be surprised and not particularly impressed by just how much effort seems to have gone into keeping this billionaire pop star safe. What's going on?
Well, I think we don't yet know exactly what's gone on. What we do know, as you're saying, is that the Attorney-General provided some legal advice to the Metropolitan Police. I think our understanding is also that the Metropolitan Police were pretty reluctant to do this. And there's been a long-standing position that the Metropolitan Police, all police forces, are operationally independent. That means that politicians can't tell them what to do. They can't say, arrest that man or this woman, and they can't say to whom they should be providing blue light escorts and motorbike outriders. And I think to give you a sense of just how unusual this is, most ministers, most cabinet ministers wouldn't have anything like this level of security. And I think the problem from the Metropolitan Police's point of view was that they did not feel that there was any credible threat to the singer, which meant that they needed to provide the police escort. But the other side of this, of course, is that Keir Starmer himself accepted, I think, 10 tickets to go for free to the concert. He's paid some of that money back, but not all of it. And a variety of other Labour cabinet ministers and other Labour senior figures also attended the concert for free, invited by different people, including Taylor Swift's music company. The Home Secretary was also invited by the music company. She did not initially declare that because the hospitality was given to her husband, a TV presenter on another channel now. But then it came out that she had accepted the hospitality. And then, of course, there were concerns raised that as a result of that hospitality, she had lent on the police. And that, I think, is some of the problem that we're seeing now.
Henry, a lot of people are saying that, you know, this government's only been in for 102 days. I mean, this is perhaps teething problems, that they didn't quite know how the sort of levers of Whitehall work. But I suppose, on the other hand, the Chief of Staff was Sue Gray, and you don't get much more Whitehall than Sue Gray. I mean, how does this happen to a new government?
Well, I think the problem really starts from the very top. I think it's obvious that Keir Starmer himself had a really big judgment blind spot. I think he went in, I don't have a sort of particular insight into his soul, but I think he thought, I'm a good guy. I'm not somebody who's the same as these, as he would see it, Tories who are supposedly bending the rules. And he thought that somehow he was acting in a particular moral way. And I suppose that he directed his former Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, to speak to Taylor Swift's mother and arrange for this VIP escort, leaning on the Metropolitan Police. And it's all very improper, but I think the problem really goes to the very top. And it's quite unusual for a Prime Minister to lose their Chief of Staff so early into their time in office.
Yeah, also, just very quickly, we're running out of time, but what does this mean for Prince Harry?
Well, exactly. I mean, these decisions are normally taken by an expert committee called RAVEC, which is the Royal and VIP Protection Committee, and they take these decisions very, very seriously. And as we've seen, there was huge controversy when police protection was withdrawn from Prince Harry and from his wife. So it's not the sort of thing that ministers should lightly intervene on, I wouldn't think. And I think we can expect more of this story. But as you were both saying, this is another dimension to the growing cronyism scandal, which really has engulfed this government.
Thank you very much. Henry Newman, former Special Advisor, great to have you on the show.
Now, when Henry left government, he set up this website called the Whitehall Project, and he was going to track sort of different movements in Whitehall, all very insider stuff. He's just been writing for the past 100 days now on just scandal after scandal after scandal. I
think he's absolutely right that Keir Starmer thought, you know, I'm a good guy. I'm not going to get this type of stuff wrong. You know, it's OK if I do it because I'm the rules guy. I'm the moral compass. I'm not like the horrible Tories.
Well, it sounds like there's much more to come on this story, and we'll be following it every step of the way.
Well,
but don't go anywhere, because, of course, Martin Daubney is up next. Stick with us here on GB News.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Grey and gloomy for most of us today, and increasingly damp, if not wet, overnight as areas of heavy rain move up from the south. That's where our weather's coming from at the moment. Low pressure to the west, high pressure to the east, and this mild southerly airflow, but that mild wind brings a lot of clouds, so increasingly murky and increasingly wet as bands of heavy rain move up across the south and southwest into Wales, and then through the early hours across northern England, much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, with the far north of Scotland staying clear of that, and the far southeast as well. But wherever you are, it is a mild start to Wednesday. Best of any brightness first thing will be across the far north, so perhaps Orkney, Caithness, Sutherland, but elsewhere across Scotland, extensive cloud cover, outbreaks of rain on and off, some heavier bursts at times. Mostly this is light to moderate. The rain will be more persistent through Cumbria at this stage, North Wales, parts of Northern Ireland. Some issues potentially through the night for Northern Ireland, as well as for Wales and Western England because of the heavy nature of the rain, 50 millimetres or more in a short space of time. Be prepared for some travel disruption first thing, and certainly tricky driving conditions in the west. But further east, actually, we'll see some decent sunny spells developing through London, East Anglia and the southeast. And with the breeze coming up from the south, temperatures could reach 20 to 22 Celsius. Further west, it's mild, yes, but it's gloomy, and those outbreaks of rain are continuing throughout much of the day. They'll be on and off, but they will be heavy at times. Certainly a soggy end of the day for much of Western England and Wales, Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. Eventually that system does clear through. Brighter skies follow for Thursday with 1 or 2 showers, and it's also going to feel a little fresher as temperatures start to dip away.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on